This is the one they sent me.
Yeah, no, that's what I got you. So I mentioned that earlier. Yeah, and you can see it if you go to the website, the tab for the
I'll have to do that. I'll go over to the website. Oh well. I'll just get it.
Did you go from the website?
No, I have the website. I haven't been to the website yet. When I go
you
to
can't see it.
Dropbox, you just get the size of the shape out.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I'll just say, as long as you go to the website, it comes up the whole picture.
There's not enough electrons there.
They won't get there. I'm not worried. I can ad lib. Yeah, we'll get it.
Actually, on the agenda, you've got Copper Rock first and Short Group second. We're going to take them in that order. So that's your front four. And after 30 minutes, I'm going to cut them off and say, I assume they'll be done anyway. And after 30 minutes, I'll cut that off and say we can continue the discussion, regular meeting. And then if the second one, we're not done, we can do all that stuff in regular meeting. But once both of them, we need to cut. Something not to take nothing off of the presentation. Oh yeah, that's hard to say. I say, ooh, finish.
It's all right anyway because everything's blurry to me right now today.
Okay.
Doesn't make any difference.
I'm surprised that I don't use.
I can put my thumbprint on them.
No.
I hope it is. Just to be like, oh, it's in here.
No, my optometrist tells me to put more eye drops in my eyes. Should straighten it out. I go, nah, it ain't working.
Yeah, I don't know. I got so many floaters in my left eye. It's like flipping through a dirty windshield all the time.
It feels like bugs are flying around.
It's awful.
Don't get old.
That must be why we can't see the rest of the agenda. You can't open that? Yeah, my left eye was my dominant eye, but now it's not cramping. And my right eye is not my dominant eye, but someone has any good vision. I don't think so. I've asked a couple times and there's much they can do. It's supposed to kind of clean itself off. wait for the regular meeting. Okay.
Thank you so very much.
Good to see you. How are you? Good. I know.
Are you getting lonely or what?
Right, it's just the middle of summer and you're gonna be crazy. Oh, good. Well, you've been traveling. You've been traveling too, right? Yeah, I thought I saw some.
Not with a full picture, with a
Nice. Sure. I'll say.
later, right? Good to see you too. That's a nice idea, but you can't do it.
Okay.
Oh, I know.
Pretty good crowd for a work session.
Yeah, no kidding.
Of course, it's been
Long meeting, folks.
advertised.
We're going to closed session after this. Probably if we're in.
It's a work session.
We're in work session.
But they'll talk afterwards. We'll just sit back and listen. Property or control it 3 minutes. It's good. We'll be all right.
I was hoping for a good hope.
I like the I hope.
I didn't think it was.
Extra later, too?
I don't know why that's there. I didn't bring it. I saw it laying there. I just kind of shoved it back. But anybody wants it, help yourself.
I like Milky Way.
I'll
there-
take it only if the public comes.
There you go.
Public comes goes on a long time.
Okay. I need what energy?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why it's there, but it was laying right there when I sat down.
Somebody was trying to butter up the mayor ahead of time.
Yeah, it didn't work so well.
Does yours look like that? Sure does. Yeah. Sure. We're not the only ones. Even, I went on the website, I got the same thing.
Yeah, so nice.
Yeah. So does he. So does he. So we're all in the same
I don't
boat.
know what she's looking at, but it's not what it's supposed to. So you have to, so if you want to see the whole thing, you have to go to the website, hit the tab, so you can see minimal color. It's not in the fastest color.
I'm not messing with it.
So anyway, I think that we're here to hear the presentations anyway, so I'm hoping that there'll be some graphics involved.
Hey, 2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Victory.
One of the highlights of the year. We bring that up in the movie. That would be such a debilitating montage. Glad it came up with that process.
John.
That was a good one.
Oh, he'll come.
Thank you, Scott. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to the special City Council work session for July 15th, 2024. Maria, would you please call the roll?
Fritz,
Here.
Lowe,
Here.
McLaughlin.
Here.
Cummins.
Here?
Manetza.
Here. This evening, we're seeing presentations on the responses for the Chinook Pier RFP that was put out back in January. We received these responses in April. We had 3, one has dropped out, so now we're down to 2. Presentations this evening will be done by the developers and who are doing the proposals. We've scheduled 1 hour for this work session, then we have to roll into our regular meeting. So in the interest of fairness and equal time, I'm going to give 30 minutes to each of them, starting with Copper Rock. And then if the presentation is done and we have comments, questions from council members, I'll cut it off at 30 minutes. We'll go into the charrette proposal. Same deal there. We'll have, here's the presentation. If there's questions, comments, thoughts, we'll cut that off when we start the meeting. And then we'll pick it up again in our regular meeting. Item number 11 is where we continue a work session. So everybody at council will have an opportunity to address their questions and concerns. And I think everybody will get, I think both sides will get equal treatment. So that's my ground rules here, and if we don't finish in the hour, we will continue. So our first one up is Copper Rock to do a presentation of their proposal. Who do we have here from Copper Rock?
Good evening. Do you need address or any of that type of information, or just name, and is that adequate?
Well, for this, we're doing a presentation on your proposal, so if you just tell us who we are, that'd be
Okay.
great.
All right. Thank you. Good evening. My name's Greg Taylor. I'm a senior development specialist with Copper Rock Development and Construction, and I'm going to turn my timer on here just so I'm respectful of the time. We appreciate the invitation to come here tonight to present to you, and we appreciate the assistance that Ashley and Brian have given to us in terms of input on our proposal. Obviously, we're familiar with Grand Haven and have done many projects here, and we're looking forward to the Chinook Pier being the next project we do in the Grand Haven area. I'm joined here tonight by our architectural partners, Kirsten and Magda, with Architectura, based here in Grand Haven. And I'm going to be giving an overview of the project. We understand that you're very familiar with these proposals, so we're going to leave this at a high level so we can have the normal Q&A without going too far into repeating all that was in the written proposal that we sent over. But we did want to highlight a few things that we think make our proposal interesting and exciting for the city. And, we're eager, obviously, to move forward if it's the right fit for the community. A little bit about Copper Rock, just a sentence or two. We're based in Grand Rapids. We have offices Lansing and, New Buffalo and in Elkhart. And we're Midwest-centric and have been operating for about 12 years in West Michigan. And again, we're very familiar with this type of public-private partnership. We've done many of these types of projects in the past. And one in particular that I'd like to point you toward is a very similar project that we're doing right now with the Berry County Community Foundation in Hastings, which has a very similar process. And we're doing a 15,000 square foot multi-use public market and food hub is what they're calling it, adjacent to a 135-unit apartment project, which we're building in downtown Hastings. So I'll reference that in just a minute or two because we think it's applicable experience to what we're talking with you all tonight. As you know from all of your involvement in the project, there are 5 key things that we were trying to achieve that I think the community is trying to achieve as well in this process. Creating a place for the people of Grand Haven to go, enhancing the physical and visual connections to both the waterfront and the downtown, promoting flexible multi-use space, and maintaining a family-friendly and affordable nature of the waterfront, and enabling investment from the private sector to increase the tax base over time. Our vision, which Kirsten and Magda are going to lay out for you in terms of review of our drawings, which I won't do, is obviously a mixture of a multi-use market space at one end of the site, two-story facility in the middle that would be mixed use of office and retail, and then our vision would be for a standalone kind of end cap restaurant space for a unique restaurant user, which again we'll go through. We're looking at a rough budget between $13.9 million and $17.9 million for all three of the structures, and that's based on some preliminary estimates on actual cost. Obviously, the schedule is based on the RFP and the normal process that would have to go through in terms of approval. And I wanted to reference, we take a team approach to everything, and we try to take a long-term approach. Again, we view this as not the only project we're going to be doing in Grand Haven, but the next project that we're doing in Grand Haven. And we're fortunate enough that we've had the opportunity to work with the Community Foundation and others on some recent projects here in town, and we feel very comfortable executing here in your community. As I mentioned, since we're a team-based development company, we always try to work with the best and brightest in every discipline that we may not have the luxury of having in-house. And one group that I wanted to point out that we've been working with closely on this Berry County project is a group called New Venture Advisors, which is a national platform, a group of advisors, some of whom live here as close as Grand Rapids that we've worked with, that really do what we're looking at for this market space on a national scope. And they have a very extensive history in this. They know how to best poll the needs of each individual community, and more importantly, they know how to quantify those uses to try to determine which will be most successful and most profitable based on the unique characteristics of a community. So we're looking very forward to engaging Kathy Nyquist, the owner of New Venture Advisors, and Andrea Carbine, who we worked with on the Berry County project. They're both familiar with our proposal. They're both eager to get involved. And again, we think that the team is in very good hands relative to the expertise that they bring to help us answer the what, and then we can help answer the how and the when and maybe the why. So again, I'd like to emphasize that they're on our team and eager to get started here in Grand Haven. And again, they have a full process in place that we've worked through with great success in a community not far from here. Some specifics that you might ask that really are too early for us to answer are, what's the name of the specific restaurant? Who are the names of the specific occupants of the commercial space? What's the exact formula and components that would be in the marketplace? Again, those are things that are yet to be determined, but our vision would be that the restaurant space would be some type of year-round destination that would be family-friendly for all ages to enjoy. Without naming names, I think we can all think of other communities along the lakeshore or other places that we've individually visited where there's that local connection, local ownership, local commitment, rather than just trying to troll to find out what is the latest franchise that we think might work here. We think that a successful restaurant in this location, maximizing those unique amenities and unique characteristics of downtown Grand Haven, will have some form of local connection. And so that would be where we would start relative to trying to recruit that destination that, again, would be year-round. One of the things we really like about this site, which is a positive thing that's manifested over the last few years, is of course that there's now in addition to the single-family and seasonal housing, there's also some year-round housing within walking distance, thinking of the Peerless project, the Tribune project, where you have residents within walking distance of this location who could actually use an amenity like this market, if not on a daily or weekly basis. And we think that's an exciting opportunity. Relative to the other components, as we mentioned earlier, we think new venture advisors could be very helpful in helping determine, what would that new expanded farmers market look like if it's enclosed? And what would that kind of incubator, food training, or food instruction or nutritional instruction, whatever food component that we wanted to add into that space look like? And again, we don't have the time tonight, but they have an extensive history in trying to determine exactly what would work best. And again, we're also going to borrow from other experiences and other projects that we've done, things that we've seen in our travels that again might be year-round, but change the use in some of this space on a seasonal basis, and at the same time be cognizant of all of the other things that are unique to Grand Haven in this location, whether it be obviously the fish cleaning station being salvaged, whether it be relocation of the mini golf, to some other spot on our site or a nearby site, whatever those unique things that the community really cherishes, we'd like to incorporate that into our design, which we think is a nice mesh of both modern architecture and what we see here is historically. With those comments, I'd like to, again, thank you for your time, and I'd like to introduce Kirsten to go through some of the physical aspects of the design, and of course, I'll be here for Q&A as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, City Council. Kirsten Runschke. And just to kind of highlight and reiterate some of the things that Greg already shared with you, what you see here is kind of a conceptual design. It's the vision to see how we want to organize this site and what the direction is for the architectural design that we move forward with. We see this as a destination point on the boardwalk for all, and what we're trying to emulate and reiterate is those things that we found in your Beyond the Pier report and focusing on that multi-use. So some of the things, since you're very familiar already with the proposal, I'm going to kind of highlight some of the things that you may not necessarily see that we didn't necessarily call out, but major elements that are also within the concept and what our vision is for you. Within that green space between the multi-use and the river vendor walk area, we see that community green space is an activated area for perhaps movie nights for families to come. We see the wall, if you wouldn't mind, Tim, forwarding 2 slides, maybe one more. The blank wall that you see on the side there being utilized for movies where we can have people come and gather in the evening and enjoy the outdoors in the lawn space. We also see that being utilized for green space, for games and activities. Within this open plaza that you see on this image, we see a visual connection to the charter fishing that happens downtown, a place for community gathering around a sculpture or fire pit. Again, kind of a conceptual idea of what we're proposing. Perhaps giving a home to an ice rink in the winter time that's not necessarily happening at the Lynn Sherwood Stadium right now, but somewhere that I think community members had asked for at one point. Within this concept, we wanted to leave room for flexibility and to open the opportunity to move the mini golf. So we kind of left everything in the parameters that were in the RFP, but we've had in the back of our mind, as Greg has said, different opportunities of where that mini golf might be nice and how it could be reorganized as well. We also found to finish the connection. If you don't mind going to another, maybe another one. One more. We wanted to make connections back to the splash pad and have that connection continue and be finished. That was, I think, part of the early visions for this whole concept, to make everything come together for the community again. We did remove the toilets, as you saw in the proposal, from the fish station, but we've included that, and our thoughts are always to put in the multi-use area. This would allow them to become year-round use toilet rooms. Right now, I know they close down in the winter months, so this would give opportunity for that. We felt that the opportunity for businesses above the retail space would be another way to make this more of a year-round vital space, providing vibrancy of people working, shopping, and playing. Some of the things that I know that have come up in discussion that I just want to hit really quickly for you is that the intent all along is that what you see in that multi-use waterfront market is that we're not exceeding the 30 feet. We are adhering to your zoning. The little pop-up there is really kind of our idea of maybe how we house and hide mechanical units. But again, this is all kind of conceptual at this point in time. And we're trying to play off some of the iconic imagery that we have in town and some of the historic buildings that we have with that particular use. The retail and vendor space, we tried to, draw on our connection to the Washington Street and how do we bring some of those shops into this area as well. Likewise, with the with the leasable space, potentially restaurant, play off of what we have on the beach, a little bit more modern, a little bit more contemporary to hit a little bit of everybody's desires for this community. With that, the other item I will note too is I think there was discussion around parking, and we feel in our concept right now we are pretty darn close to maintaining the parking that you have. Yes, it's reconfigured, but we're not necessarily giving up parking, because I know that's a concern for many people. With that, I'll just end that we feel this is, again, kind of a conceptual idea, and we know that there's a lot of input from key stakeholders that still needs to take place, and we're, as Greg said, very flexible and willing to learn and listen from key community people. So we thank you.
Do you have more? Okay. So we have a few minutes here. If there's questions and comments and concerns from council, who would like to start?
Yeah, I'll start. First of all, I want to say thank you for listening to all of the disparate input. We've been at this for a long time. When you think back to Beyond the Pier and then taking a couple runs at this before, and it's never easy to try to take different, diverse views and try to incorporate something in it for everyone, and I think you've done that very well. Overall, my impression was it's a beautiful, beautiful design for that space. The things that I personally like, and I know you've been provided some feedback from the community, but the welcome archway, I thought, with the incorporation of an art installation, actually was a really cool way of taking the art in Connector Park and the art that everywhere else in the city and sort of creating a bridge there. And so I thought that was very innovative and a nice, very nice aspect of it. The Riverwalk retail shops, I actually like that they look like individual shops as opposed to just one big, building. And the farmers market, it appears to me that you get that they have to back in and, they have to unload their goods and those kind of things. And those are really important elements. My question, in the green space, I love how you've designed some green space around the parking so that we have some buffer from just looking at a lot of parked cars. So I think you were very creative in that approach. On the leased space on the west end, you said that was going to be a restaurant, and you talked a little bit about that. Is it anticipated that is still going to have an outdoor deck or outside dining?
Yes, that's the intent right now, is that very unique view looking down the channel, would be used for, there would be a year-round element, that's the goal, but there would also be an indoor-outdoor element that could be used seasonally. So there would be a deck or patio area there, likely on the southern portion of that space.
Okay. And you mentioned the kitchen, the incubation kitchen, just for my own. Is that the same as a commercially licensed kitchen? Or would it be a commercially licensed kitchen?
Again, working off the model of this Berry County project, that particular building has a teaching kitchen where they'll be teaching nutrition classes to the community and doing demonstrations. And it also has a maker space where chefs or others who have food ideas who may not be able to afford a full-blown kitchen and seating area will be able to use a fully fitted-out commercial kitchen, which would have all the licensing,
All that, okay.
fire protection and hoods and all of those types of things to help produce their goods with the hope that those incubated parties would graduate into a more permanent space somewhere in the community.
Right. I get that. I just wanted to make sure that it met the needs of some of our vendors right now, and that is for a commercially licensed kitchen. So it sounds like you've got that all covered. You've also mentioned the putt-putt and that you're flexible in looking at some other spaces. I think at least I would be interested in seeing what you're, without disrupting your design, which I think, and flow of what you have, where you think that might go adjacent, or where would be the opportunities to incorporate that back in? Those are my questions.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I'll go, it's fine. Obviously, this is a valuable piece of developmental land in Grand Haven, and, I want to make sure that we develop it. It meets all the needs of, all the economic needs of the community. Job creation, we want to stimulate our local economy, and most importantly, we want additional tax revenue. When you're talking about the farmer's market, are you going to own and operate that? Is that going to be your responsibility?
I didn't specifically address that, sir, but that model could be several different things, since this is a public-private partnership. Again, we're flexible to, we know that purchasing the land is not part of this formula. The
Right.
city's going to continue to own that land. So whether there would be we would be hired to build something that would be owned by the city, whether it be the brick and mortar, or whether we were in partnership, or whether we owned that exclusively and managed it and handled the leasing. Some hybrid is probably the best structure here, because there's existing snow removal, existing lawn care, et cetera, and easements all over the place relative to this building. The model, and again, in Berry County, that we're owning that, we're master leasing it to the Community Foundation. And the Community Foundation is entering into sublets for the individual people within the community. That's just one model that could be done. Again, in that scenario, we're managing the facility, making sure that all the logistics are taken care of, but the Community Foundation has autonomy to choose who they want to lease to within that market space. I think it's a little bit too early for us to know the exact
Yeah, I
structure.
understand.
But again, we're open to whatever the leadership of the community thinks would be the best fit.
As some people know, I've been involved in economic development my whole life, and this is the first step in the development process, and I think the community has to know that. This not a long process, but it's going to be a process that's going to include the community, and, you know, right now, there's a lot of comments out there, and I just want to, you know, let the community know, rest assured, that this is a process that we have to go through. And, you know, where the mini golf's going to go, or who's going to own what, or how this is going to get financed, is way down the road, you know. And so I really, you know, respect what you've said about being flexible, because we've had all the comments. You've seen them. You know, I'm sure the Charette Group has seen them. So, you know, we want to encompass the community as much as we possibly can. I think that's important. For us that's been in this community for a while, and especially the people who've been here their whole life, they know that that's an important part of the community. You know, frankly, I'm looking for a partner. I'm looking for a partner that we can work with. You know, we've gone through this once. You know, you submitted once before, and I want to get this done. And I'm really looking for a partner that's willing to work with us, to be honest with us, to tell us what they need up front, so we have no surprises at the end. People knows where I stand on the diesel plant. I really felt that, you know, they kind of, you know, went in a different direction than I thought. And, you know, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page as we move forward. I think that's so important to this community. You know, why do you think you're the best partner? Why would you think you're the best partner to work with the city?
Well, I think one of the things, and again, with all due respect to Mr. Charette, who, full disclosure, has been an excellent customer of ours for several years. So we have obviously nothing negative to say about the Charette Group at all. But again, we have a diverse background in doing these types of projects, and in myself in particular, I think that having this now experience of doing something very similar to this in another West Michigan community, where we're fully engaged with the city and the community foundation and all the stakeholders, is just the perfect experience to allow us to be in a good position to move this forward. And again, we have no absolute formula in which we need to adhere to, because we do work in both the development arena and the construction arena. We're very comfortable being just a builder. We're also very comfortable being an active partner, both on a short-term basis and on a long-term basis. So I think that flexibility and that open-mindedness and that creativity is very beneficial to us. And we're also very appreciative that we have, you know, local teammates in terms of our architectural team that are already fully integrated into the community and know better than we possibly can, even though we're only 45 minutes away, what the community's needs and sensitivities are, because we want this to be fully collaborative. The moment it becomes adversarial, it's not the right project.
Right. I agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm good.
Okay, thanks. Does anybody got like 1 minute's worth of questions, or would you rather wait until?
Yeah, you said you're going to eliminate the fish cleaning station, and pretty much you're not going to have commercial, we're not going to have our charter boat fishing, or?
Oh,
From your drawings
not at
up there,
all,
I don't
sir.
see that at all
Just
up
the
there.
opposite. We're preserving it and
Okay.
trying to do everything we can to incorporate our design into that very important industry.
It's a very important industry,
Yeah.
plus it's a history for us. My family's been in the fishing industry for a long time here, so I just want to make sure we maintain that.
I mean, and if we're successful, we'd love to see a catch and cook component as it relates to
Thank you.
what we're doing.
I'll make it. I got other ones, but we'll.
Yeah, okay, so as I said at the beginning, if there's other questions, comments by council, I'd like to save them until our regular meeting so that we can keep the work session moving along. It's about 7 now, so I would turn the floor over to the Charette Group to do their presentation. Again, we'll hear the presentation, we'll take comments and questions from council until 7:30 when we start our regular meeting. Then we'll pick up anything that's left over during our regular meeting when we come to that point. So, Charette Group, Denny?
Thank you, Your Honor. Hi, I'm Denny Charette. I have with me tonight Rachel Doty, who is the founder and president of the Tri-Cities Museum, Jim Horman, who is a partner with Progressive A&E, who Jim's worked with us for probably 30 years. What's your last? Yeah, John Charette, he's here too. We are gratified and thankful to have this opportunity. As I think of it, you have our package. It takes most developers about 20 minutes to clear their throat, so I do not want to belabor or wear you out. But as I think of it, it was about 40 years I stood at this dais when you selected me to build it the first time. And I've been through your criteria. I think we meet most of that. We talked about local connectivity. My family's been here 130 years. The most beautiful grandchild on the planet is sixth generation, my granddaughter, Charlene. I don't know where you want me to start. I've done a lot of these for a long time. And I can tell you all and Copper Rock, they're very good builders. They build a lot of stuff for me. I don't know that I've met you, young. What's your name?
Greg Taylor.
Hi, Greg. I'm Denny Charette. I know Rob Constantine and your other owner, but I've owned a construction company, but we're developers. We've been based in Grand Haven our entire career, but I've worked in 30 national markets, built maybe 10 or 12 million square feet, and here in America and in Central America. I love the community. My youngers, I call them, our young team, is very excited about this, and it's, as Yogi Berra might say, deja vu all over again. But our interest in this project is explicitly related to our family's relationship with this community. And I agree with our friends from Copper Rock. We want to be flexible. We want a partnership. I think we demonstrated that a long, long time ago. City came and there was a call on the site from us about 20 years ago because, as you all know, it's a land lease, and without a vote of the city, we can't sell the land. It takes a special kind of an appraisal to get a subordinated land lease, to get valuation, to do all this. We might avoid all that and just, if we build it, just pay for it. I anticipate there are probably questions related to our design, and that's very fluid. And we've built a lot of retail in a lot of places. I suspect there may be questions about tax impact of a 501c3. I am able and willing to address that in this discussion quantitatively and express to you what my view of that is. I have a background in quantitative analytics. My graduate degrees in finance and real estate from Georgetown University, so I don't know, I got lucky there. But I can go through these well-prepared notes by my staff, or I can answer questions. Again, we've submitted what I think was a pretty good package, but what my focus really is to speak to again why we're interested. This is in terms of the scope of our company, this is a modest-sized project, but it's extremely important to me. When I built the thing down the street, Tribune Lofts, the smallest project I had ever built before that in apartments was 199 units. That's 39 units. It was at my advanced age now, it was something I wanted to do to try to anchor the east end of the Central Business District. And I think Chinook Pier can anchor the west end. When I was the chairman of the EDC for the city council, this body asked me to identify the top 5, the top 5 criteria that they thought the most important items for the community were. And I identified what I thought they were. And number 1, I'll just mention 2, was the solidification of downtown Grand Haven as a Tri-Cities central business district. The township, we've built many things out there, they're wonderful people, has a very robust DDA that has produced millions of dollars in excess proceeds. And at one point, there was talk of perhaps some development going out there. I think it is critical for the Tri-Cities that downtown Grand Haven remains the focal point for the community with respect to being the gathering place for cultural, economic, financial, office, and retail. That's my interest. Whether we do this or not will not change your lives, it won't change ours, but it's important to me. It's very important to me. And, or I wouldn't be here, candidly. And I was gratified that our friends at Scott Geerlings, who apparently withdrew, endorsed us. I hope that has some merit in your thinking. The other respondent to the RFP. I believe we're perhaps as qualified, perhaps more than any other respondent you've had. And I think that, boy, they gave me a lot of notes here, but I think I'll just let you ask questions. Well, let me address the elephant in the room about the museum and taxation. There are two, we just did something like this in Muskegon. We gifted what is now called Dune Harbor County, Muskegon County Dune Harbor Park. I don't know if you're familiar with it. My partner and I, we worked over 5 years, and the county now is in possession of 377 acres, 15,000 lineal feet of inland lakes, 3,000 feet of Lake Michigan frontage. At the county board, the question was raised, well, why don't, we could have a lot of tax base accrue from that. We did an analysis in real estate development. There is primary ad valorem tax effect, and then there is secondary or ancillary. I've estimated, and I have it here somewhere, what the cost, I think, what are they, about 15 mills contributed to the city? Yeah, and so 15 mills, if I spend $4 million, 60 grand a year. If Rachel's project costs $5 million, the differential is going to cost you 30, 40 grand a year. It's in here somewhere. I can provide it. But what I think is very important is to recognize that if we can create, the challenge we've had in Grand Haven is we're a 5-month town down here. We are. And what the museum offers is a year-round impact of up to 100 to 125, 50,000 people. There are statistics for that. Those people are going to come into town. They're going to visit. They're going to spend money in our retail shops, in our restaurants. They're going to stay in our hotels. They're going to do lots of things that's going to add tax. That doesn't address ad valorem tax. But what will do that is through the creation of that, the impact of those people coming here, our downtown district and the surrounding north and south corridors will undoubtedly have an uplift in its SEVs. It will. There's no question of that. I also recognize under Headley that those SEVs will not yield additional taxes until they are unlocked through a sale. There will be an emphasis and a significant amount of increased tax base because there will be a highly sought after amount of space from investors, including ourselves. Indeed, if I were not convinced that the museum would be accretive to what we're doing, we wouldn't invest what will be several $1 million ourselves. It's important to recognize that even in the absence of the taxes that will not be paid by the museum, and again, which is not, it's not de minimis, but it is certainly not a draconian loss, will be the ancillary or secondary amount of tax revenue that will be generated. And I'd be happy to work with your assessor, and I know you use the fellow at the county, Josh, yeah, and try to quantify that for you. If I were sitting up there, I'd want to know that, and I'd want to feel confident that what I am sharing you can believe is credible. I believe we can demonstrate that. For this night, if we could stipulate that we'll probably be okay on tax, and then I believe will enhance our tax base well beyond what is lost, if we can allow for that in this discussion, we are more than willing to go forward and work with the city. As Copper Rock said, this is a very fluid process. When we did it the first time, the first designs were not at all what ended up there. And I also want to address, because it came back to me a couple times, well, Chinook Pier had mold. When Darrell Tamman came to me and wanted to buy it back, we had a very clear discussion about what I told him the city needed to do to avoid that. We were aware of it when we put all those pilings in the ground, and so that was an unfortunate outcome that may or may not have been the result of the furtherance of the ownership that had been taken over by the city. I'll hop around a little bit. The farmers market, we're open to owning it or managing it. We manage over $1 billion of our own properties. We know how to manage real estate. We can manage that. And frankly, we're going to want to have a significant role in that because we're between the museum and our investment. It's going to be critical that, and if you're committed to the farmers market being there, and I'm ambivalent to it being there, that's very much a destination business where I think the Children's Museum is highly accretive to this area. I think we really need to give thought to that. You bring 100,000 people in here, and they are going to come in November, and they're going to come in April, and they're going, and March, and I also suspect there might be questions about, well, do we really want to utilize waterfront for a museum? I won't take the time now, but we can provide you with markets that have, Chicago on, on Navy Pier, Children's Museum. Pretty valuable property over there, maybe even worth more than our waterfront. The cultural value of that is unquantifiable. It lifts our opportunity to be unique, distinct, and separate from any other lakeshore community. And I talked to Rachel, and I said, if we initially received the RFP, and then we're approached, I think Jim called us, or maybe Rachel, and said, would we partner with them? And I listened, and we said, sure. You were probably going to ask, well, if we don't want the museum, will Charette Group still be interested? Yes, but I'm enthusiastic about having them as our partner. I wouldn't say that if I wasn't. Further, this is going to take a long time to ferret out, to have exactly what would be the right thing, and after it's built, it won't be the right thing for some people. If we can reach and approach and have the citizenry feel generally good about this, and you get a majority of positive feedback, that's a big win, I think, for all of us who live here. Again, I was born in that hospital. My mom was born in that hospital. He was born in that hospital. A bunch of us have probably been born in that hospital. And yeah, community involvement. Mike said that his dad was involved in the fishing industry. My dad was a tugboat captain for Construction Aggregates. I think his dad worked with my dad, and he was a gill net fisherman right across the channel where I used to work on the gill net boats when I was a kid. I have deep roots here. I care about this town. I can live anywhere I want. I don't want to sound immodest, but I want to be very clear, abundantly clear, how important this is to my family, to our company, to our team, because this is our town, and I take that very seriously. I will quit waxing philosophically, and I'm happy to answer questions about parking. I can tell you how many cars per 1,000 you need for retail. We are there, and that's not counting the product across the street that came as a result of Kevin McGraw's thing, the River Caddis thing. We have adequate parking. I was very worried about it when I built it the first time. We went through unbelievable discussions with the charter boat folks back then. But it all worked out, and we owned it fully 25, when I built it, 1984, 82, whenever it was. When was it?
84 is what I opened.
There you go. I was 28 years old. I am not now. We went through it then. We worked cooperatively. We'll work with them again. I got lots of notes here. Why don't I just, I'm happy to answer questions. It's going to be a long night for you guys, and I don't want to make it any longer than it needs to be. But be assured of two things. If we are chosen, and if we get there, and there's a lot between now, as Kevin said, there's a lot between now and then. And you've got, I'm sure, hundreds of citizens, we do, who want to have it be not developed or developed in a fashion that doesn't have a commercial emphasis. There's an argument for that. Bob served with me when we did the thing on the north end. It didn't turn out as I envisioned. We had left by then. It remains not as I envisioned. And we could have tipped our way out of that thing. I was also chairman of the BRA. But we worked hard on that, and we did the best we could. Two things. If we do it, we'll do it right. We will work collaboratively with the city, and we will not let you down. Happy to answer questions that you may have. Lots of stats here, but I suspect you're less interested in those and more interested in questions that you might have.
All right, so we've got like 13 minutes before we start our regular meeting, so.
Are we hanging around for that, Your Honor? Are we,
What
is
I
there
would
going to be
like-
more, because
what I
I
would
thought we
like-
were in the regular meeting, and then I heard it was the.
Yeah, you came
work
in
session.
late, so you didn't hear my explanation.
Sorry. Yeah,
At
well.
7:30, I've got a hard stop to start a regular meeting.
Yeah.
And I was trying to make good use of this hour to give each side a chance to present,
Yep.
answer some questions. In our regular agenda, after we get going, we'll pick this back up.
Okay, good.
And so
right.
if there's other questions, comments from council members, we will pick it back up at that point in time. But between now and 7:30, I would invite council members to speak up. Ryan, you didn't have a chance to talk before, so I would start with you.
Well, my question, or my comments are more like compare and contrast. I don't have questions at this point, so.
Okay, well, in that case, who does? Anyone?
I do.
Yes, you do. Go for it.
Will you be the developer of the museum? What's the relationship between Charette and the museum?
Right. We will be the developer. We insisted that we are the developer for the museum. And Rachel knows that. Jim knows that. We won't do it unless we oversee it. I'm just not going to let that control go. Yes.
But you're not going to own it?
No. No.
So you're going to develop it and then flip it over to the
Well,
museum? What's
the flip would infer we ever owned it. We're going to be the owner's rep. We'll hire an architect. We already have, we have an architect. They also are going to build that. We have worked with these guys for 35 years. They've done hundreds of millions of dollars for me. We were delighted when we found out that Rachel was already working with them. They do stuff for me
Right.
right now. Yeah, so that'll be owned by the museum, but we're going to oversee its construction.
So they're going to have to put all the financing together before you.
We will assist them with that.
You'll assist them.
Yeah,
with that.
that's all part of,
That's phase.
Yeah.
In your proposal, that's phase 3, though. The museum seems to be down the line a little bit.
say again, please?
I said the museum seems to be down the line a little bit because obviously they have to do some fundraising.
They do, and we're going to try to help them with that. We do a fair amount of fundraising for 501c3.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Will the farmer's market be demolished immediately?
Well, again, that's all part of the logistics and how this thing comes together. Where we've got it currently, which I find to be novel and pretty interesting, seems to make some sense. I wouldn't necessarily have it be a clean and cook thing. I don't think that's wise, but that's a matter of opinion. But I suspect, no, there would be no reason to demolish it prior to the construction of the museum. If ultimately we're awarded this and the museum cannot raise their money,
Right.
the four corners of the land lease become our relationship as a lessee and the city as a lessor. We'll have to come back to the city to the planning commission, to the city council,
Yep.
and present plans that you'll accept for the development of the easterlymost part of the site.
So if the museum doesn't move forward, you will lease and maintain that site for as long as it takes to develop it?
Yes, yeah, if we get there, absolutely, yeah. We need to control in a collaborative effort with
Yeah, no, I
the
understand.
landowner, yeah, yes.
If it wasn't built, if the museum wasn't built, what would you think would be a good use for that
Well, that's a
site?
great question. You know, retail has changed, office has changed, and I would urge you to have an open mind to office, retail, or a combination thereof. I suspect, we have to be very careful with retail. I don't know how much retail I've owned, maybe 1 million square feet. It is a dynamically, you've been involved,
Yeah.
it's a whole different world now. We need to be mindful. The biggest mistake we could make is to build something in the absence of having an articulated plan with credible users in place before we go. That industry continues to evolve at virtual light speed. We've got to work together on that. If I knew, I'd tell you.
Yeah, no,
I'm not going to be dishonest. I don't know. We got to figure it out.
Okay,
What we do, it'll be good, it'll be nice, but I don't know yet.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay.
Do I have time for a few questions?
I kind of cut Mike off on the other one. Mike, did you?
That's
want-
okay, go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, Karen.
First of all, I want to thank you for your proposal and for your investment in our community. I'm a big fan. What you did with the Tribune lofts, I think it really has added to our community tremendously. And of course, Progressive AE was our partner on the Waterfront Stadium. And I think Rachel knows I'm a big fan of having a children's museum in the city of Grand Haven. I have my doubts about the location on the waterfront. She also knows that. So I'm not telling her anything new there. My question is probably a little bit more, well, my first question for you is about, it's more of a comment. Obviously, the value proposition of that private partner arrangement shifts with a 501c, and it's a little bit, and we can talk about that different, but that creates some risk, or I guess a lot more on you as the developer for the remaining real estate. My question, though, is on the design. With the Children's Museum being this focal point, I guess I was a little surprised that it's not located, the outdoor play area wasn't like sort of next to the, adjacent to the splash pad or green space, or, like sort of from a flow. And I also didn't see a whole lot of, one of the reasons why you wanted it in the waterfront, Rachel, I think you said you wanted, that there was going to be some more interaction, more things that connected to the water, which was why it needed to be there. And yet I don't see those elements in the design. So I guess my design question is, why? If that was such a important part, that outdoor, the education, the waterfront education, the discovery, why isn't it incorporated in there? Is it?
Because we're embryonic at this point. You need to, as a council, make a decision whether it's developed or not in a public-private relationship, with or without a museum, with or without us, or copper, anyone. This plan can be, there are three elements when we do architecture. There's schematic, there's design development, and then there's engineered and fully executed, stamped plans and specs. This is onion skin at this point. That's where I used to start with. And that is where the heavy lifting and the collaborative effort needs to come between council, planning commission, the community, the developers, and in our proposal, the Children's Museum. That is, in theory, a blank slate. What you do when you first start with a piece of property is you program it to see how much square footage can you have, how much green space can you have, do you have adequate parking, ingress, egress, all kinds of things dealing with radiuses and turns. This is our initial design. We are open to completely redesigning the location and the facilities and their use. Were I sitting up there, I guess my focus would be, and I understand the reticence, and initially I said Children's Museum on the water, but as I saw these statistics, it's compelling, and what it can do for the area.
Can I ask you a
So-
question about that? If those statistics are correct, do we even have adequate parking? If we're going to have 100,000 visitors a year, as you have estimated, which seems to me to be a pretty overly optimistic number, I think it could be very successful here, but I think those are optimistic numbers, maybe not realistic numbers. But then I look at the parking and I think, where are they going to park if they're all coming?
I can tell you that based on the foot traffic that I've seen and the amount of utilization of that space, that if that's all retail, there'll be more parking challenges than with a museum. If we build a medical building, and it's a primary care office, like what I built over here at the hospital when I built Harbor Dunes, that ambulatory center right down the street here in North Ottawa. That parking became a challenge because we had so much primary care and internal med. But if it's a podiatrist office, and I was chairman of Mercy Health, so I have a fair amount of background in healthcare. If we have certain types of users use far less traffic, parking, and my view is that I know there's adequate parking for what we're doing, per code, per experiential reality. I can't, you question the numbers of people that will visit. I think Rachel's got voluminous information on comparable museums to perhaps that she could provide that might give some more illumination to that and give, and perhaps defend that. But that, when you have a large structure like that, the amount of people that come, what we call turns, how many people come in and out, if it's ice cream time, we got turns every 6 minutes. Lots of cars trying to jimmy in and out. People are going to go in there, they're going to be in there for, I'm going to guess, a couple hours, and you're going to have a fairly static parking environment, far less so than we would have. Well, for example, my office is right behind Central Park here, the Huntington Bank building, we own that building. There's like 8 cars in that lot a day because we're upstairs with half a dozen people and, banking has changed. We have lots of parking. Dependent upon the use, I believe there's adequate parking. Whatever, if you put our 15,000 and another 10 to 20 there, your parking question is not going to change whether it's a children's museum or Charette Group's corporate offices. The question won't be answered until there's definition, but you hold the ability to approve or to deny, and until you select a respondent and a developer and really get into the heavy lifting of laying that out, and people like Jim and his team come forward and quantify that for you, I don't know that you'll be totally comfortable, and I understand that. Experientially, I believe it can be accommodated. We had far more dynamic use down there when we had Chinook Pier with our 15,000 feet over the years, sharing that parking with the charter boat people. I believe it'll be adequate. That's all I'm able to say honestly today, but we have to work together to get there. And I can't speak to what Copper Rock's view of what their proposal is, but I suspect they might react in the same way. But it takes a cooperative This is going to be a lot of work and a lot of time. You've got a lot of stakeholders here. But I didn't answer your question because I don't have an answer right now. But the answer will be you hold the decision-making within the construct of your elected body. That's your frankly, your responsibility, and that gives you the opportunity to decide then. You look like you want to say something.
Well, I would like to address your, why the waterfront has been something that.
Ma'am, Rachel, you need to be at the microphone because no one can hear you being broadcast.
So I would like to thank you again for the opportunity to be here. We've been putting work in for the last 2 years on this plan, and I've had conversations with many of you and many community leaders to inform our plan. So why the waterfront? I don't think I have time in the next couple of minutes to do that, but I'll do a call to the audience at the next meeting to describe our thought process on that. And the reason we didn't get more in depth as to how this location will be utilized and why it's important was pretty much because of the constraints of the proposal. We had like a page to describe our vision for the site, and we thought it would shine through in a sentence or two, but I think you can see with the letters of support from key organizations that we've received, the Outdoor Discovery Center, and I'm not sure it made it into your packet, but we have a letter of support from the Grand Valley Water Resources Institute, that we are planning partnerships with key organizations that will help us showcase environmental stewardship of water and other important components. Coast Guard, the Coast Guard Festival, Tracy Riley and I have had conversations, and she thinks, well, I don't want to speak for her, but she would help us make those connections so that Coast Guard City USA can shine through the museum there as well. So I'll talk more in the general meeting about your other question, so.
Okay, and I guess we're going to stop the work session at this point because we're up to the time for our regular meeting. We will pick up this work session again during the meeting at the appropriate time, so there'll be time for more questions and comments with council. So,
Just to clarify, Mayor, too, she made a comment that she was going to speak during the public comment period. She would be able to address us during
She can
the
address us
work
during the
session.
Correct.
work
I was-
session.
Oh.
So-
yeah, you don't need to address this during call to the audience, but
Oh,
during the
got it.
continuation of
continue this.
the
Great.
continuation of the work session, and then we won't put the timer on you.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Sure. Okay. So we're okay, have a seat. We're going to close the work session at this point. And if we're seeing a rush for the door. So just
Hang on a
kind
minute.
of lost them, didn't I?
Yeah, that's all right.
Kind of lost them.
A little bit of shuffling, so, yeah.
Because the work session isn't over. So it's time for us to begin our regular meeting. So
Never sat up here.
if folks are leaving, please kind of hold down the noise a little.
Technically,
Hold on,
this is,
Bobby.
yeah.
All right, so it's time for us to start our regular meeting. We will pick up the work session again during the regular meeting, so if you have an interest in hearing the rest of the work session, stick around. At this point, I'm going to open our regular city council meeting for July 15, 2024. Marie, would you please call the roll?
Fritz,
Here.
Lowe,
Here.
McLaughlin,
Here.
Cummins,
Here?
Manetza.
Here. Our invocation this evening is by Pastor Emmett Brown, Trinity Reformed Church. Please rise and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, as we walk in and we look at all these pictures of plans for buildings and using your property, I'm reminded of when you created humanity. You gave mankind dominion over the earth, not to control it, not to domineer it, but to take care of it and do what's best for it. To make the decisions that are best for the utilization of the ground that you gave to us. And so now as we stand here with City Council, let us work to be in agreement as we decide not to domineer or control the land that you've given us, but instead help us to be good stewards of the resources, not just land-wise, but financially, time-wise. Let us not get bogged down in wasting countless hours on frivolous debates over what is best. Let us all be of one accord so that we can know what's best to do, so we can move forward accordingly in a manner that is pleasing to you and that does help us to walk in what you've called us to do when it says to have dominion or take care of the earth that you've given us. We pray, Father, for wisdom for our council members and patience to be able to listen sometimes to things that run on a little longer than they'd like, but also the wisdom to filter out what is best for this city. Father, each person that's sitting on that board in front of us was put there by your hand, if nothing else. So help us to trust the wisdom of you in putting them there and give them your wisdom in doing what you've called each one of them to do. All this, Father, we ask for in your precious name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we have no appointments or reappointments this evening, so it brings us to the approval of the consent and regular agendas. Are there any changes? Or, well, let's have a motion to approve the,
So moved.
And I'll second it.
a motion by Lowe, second by Fritz. Are there any changes to the consent or regular agendas that we'd like to have? No. If not, then please call the roll.
Lowe,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. Okay, now it brings us to the continuation of the work session that I promised. So now we will pick it up where we left off. Now, I think, Rachel, you were speaking?
Well, in interest of
fairness, do you
want them to go?
Whatever.
Well, you were kind of cut off in the middle, but yes, I think it depends on the questions we have.
Sure. In the interest of fairness, I know you wanted to allocate an appropriate amount of time, and we spoke last, so I wonder, would you like me to go, or do you want to give Copper Rock another?
Finish whatever it is you were saying.
Okay, sure. Well, I have more than 3 minutes, so.
This is the work session.
Have 3 minutes.
We had an hour set aside,
Yes.
now we're trying to take time on our regular meeting to wrap it up.
Yeah, that's nice. So I'd like to suggest that our proposal presents a unique opportunity, an attractive year-round indoor amenity for kids and families. And we just don't have that here right now, and we don't have it in our neighboring communities. So I, over the weekend, for example, drove to New Era, to Lewis Farms, which was wildly busy for a Saturday. I asked staff members, how many people are here? And somebody said 1,500. 1,500 people drove to New Era for family fun over the weekend on a way too hot day to spend at a farm in New Era. So I think what the Children's Museum does is capture some of that tourism leakage that we're having to neighboring communities and brings it back here year-round, right? Children's museums are attractive resources, and according to an Association of Children's Museums report, of which you remember, 30 million people visit children's museums every year in the United States. And every year, they contribute over $5.5 billion to the United States economy. So what we're suggesting here, we're not developing something new. This is a business model that exists in other communities successfully. It has so in Grand Rapids for 25 years. It has in St. Joe for probably about that. What we've done a lot of attendance projections because we think that attendance is going to drive all sorts of things for the museum. And I came up with a number of 170,000 annual visitors, and I thought, wow, that's amazing. And our board, many of which you see here today in the back row, and we've had lots of discussions over like, well, that's nice, but what's a good place to start? And we've decided that something that comes to St. Joe's Children's Museum, hour and a half south of here, would be the most prudent way to start. So when you think of our attendance projections and you say 100,000 visitors, that seems like a lot. I say, yeah, it does, but St. Joe, look at St. Joe. That's what they do. I talked to their executive director many times, and she shared lots of operational data with me. So we feel comfortable in that it's grounded in a reality that other communities have experienced. And I would say that I looked at tourism-related spending from the Pure Michigan campaign, and Ottawa County has 4 times the visitor spending that St. Joe County does. So I think 100,000 visitors a year sounds like a lot, but if we have the right product in the right place, and we price it right, we can absolutely see that much or more. I would like to just highlight the Bluey event that happened, what was it, last week? Wildly successful. Kids and families came to downtown Grand Haven on the first block to do Bluey stuff. And I don't know if anybody likes Bluey here. I love Bluey. What we're proposing to do for the downtown is to operationalize that on a year-round basis. Let us run the company, run the nonprofit that invites people to the downtown every single day of the year, every week of the year. People want things to do with their kids and families, and Lewis Farms in New Era is evidence of that. You know, there's, so I'd like to say, I don't think anybody here on city council would argue with the benefits of a children's museum. Everybody says we love children, we love museums. I've had conversations with many of you individually. They're terrific for children in the community. So the joyful learning and development of children, the support of parents and caregivers when they're helping raise young children, not helping, they're raising young children, positive relationships between children, family, community, enriched local experiences for field trips. And we've heard from superintendents and principals on how this would really impact their experience. And also the well-being of volunteers. So while they have wonderful impacts for kids and families, they also have important benefits for the attractiveness and vitality of a community as a whole. According to the Economic Impact Memorandum in our proposal that everyone received, the same professor at Grand Valley who does work for Meyer Gardens and the National Cherry Festival, he's got data from actual operational museums and cultural institutions that he used to project onto our plans. Visitors who come from out of town to visit the museum are expected to spend $40 a day per person in the community after their visit. The museum's projected to drive the creation of 59 jobs and $3.6 million of economic impact annually. And that's not just the spending, that's the running of a business, the spending of the money, the building of a building. So it's not like a direct multiplication. The museum will also impact or drive more than $150,000 of additional tax revenue annually for local municipalities, for Ottawa County and the state. And it equals about $13,000 for local municipalities. I would imagine much of that would be the city of Grand Haven, but our proposal didn't get into that specifically. So when Denny talks about, I can't even quote what he said, but the impact of us being a 501c3, it's not a net loss. It is, we are raising the tide for all ships. So, well, I'd love to share more about the specific benefits of a children's museum. I don't think that's what you care to hear tonight. What you care to hear about is why should you invest this treasured piece of waterfront property into a nonprofit children's museum? That's what I think the question is. And Denny has gotten to it. And actually, Karen, I think that's what you specifically asked.
It is my question. It is on the waterfront, because as you said, I think we're all very supportive of a children's museum here.
Yeah.
I think the question is, well, as we've talked about, why no fire barn building? Why not go for that? Or why not try incubating, in the Central Park Place and expanding out until you can, those were some of our questions.
Yeah.
Why the waterfront specifically? So it wasn't about, I get the downtown and I get, but I don't know why you passed on the other opportunities and only, it had to be at the waterfront, and I'm just not, I wasn't seeing it,
Sure.
the connection.
I think that's a wonderful, how about I answer and then you go? Is that good? All right. So we wanted to make sure our plan was solid before we pursued any opportunity for a physical location. Because we know what this community needs is a high-quality children's museum that serves the right number of people. And if you project you're going to have 100,000 visitors a year, and then you go into a space that serves half of that, the actual experience of the visitor is not great. Like, I've been to places with my kids, and I'm not going back. So we wanted to be slow and make sure we had the right data to support what we actually did. And for that, we have been talking to Jim Horman from Progressive AE for 2 years. For as long as we've been doing this, we've been having conversations, and he's helped guide some of our thinking around that. And we've also figured out we need 20,000 square feet of space to operate in the way we want and have guests have a good experience. We've got data from other children's museums on, the number of visitors and their square feet and their exhibit square feet and the stay time and all of that. And from that, we've said 20,000 square feet is really what we need for this museum. And so, but why the waterfront as opposed to elsewhere? I would say, like Denny said, children's museums are on the waterfront throughout the United States. Chicago, Boston, New Orleans, Buffalo, New York, South Carolina, Tampa, Florida. Lake Champlain has one on the waterfront. And like I said at the last meeting, children's museums welcome children and families into our communities, and they teach them the things we value. The waterfront matters, especially in Grand Haven, and there's really no better organization than a children's museum to make sure generation after generation people know that. And environmental stewardship of water resources is important to us. And for a variety of reasons, having kids learn about that in the real world adjacent to the Grand River is a really rich learning environment for that. And it'll allow us partnerships with key organizations that we've talked about. And somebody said, well, kids don't care. I read through all the community feedback from the open house, and kids don't care where they're playing. Why not just have it? Why not have it somewhere else? But I would say to that, kids might not care, but the adults that take them places do. And I think the waterfront and Coast Guard City USA having an opportunity to learn about the water on the waterfront and experiencing that, like that's the heart of our community. I was there on the 4th of July and I saw the thousands of people there. And to have us care for our community and the heart of the community is really special. But beyond that, and I'll tap Denny in a minute. So we think the waterfront location matters, right? We've seen children's museums that are in the right location, and they're not successful. They're limited in the investment that people make in them. They're limited in the attendance they get. So operationally, year over year, they're stunted. So their trajectory has been different than it could have been, which minimizes their economic impact, minimizes their educational impact. And for us, we wanted to take our time and make the right choices that we feel will result in the highest quality museum and the biggest impact that we can have for the community. So.
Okay, now, Rachel, I'll let you finish what you were saying, but I would like to get back on track. So Denny, do you have something very, very brief?
Sure.
Because I want to get back on track and get for questions to Copper Rock.
What I'd like to do is pivot a little bit and say, rather than why did they pick it, why should we as a community and why should you as leadership? We sponsored the boat races, remember them? And AVP. And people blew into town, they blew out of town, they left a lot of beer cans. That's what happened. This is unique. I don't even know if they thought of this. This is what I thought of when I said, what do we want to, you can put it anywhere. Well, we have the opportunity to create an asset that will not only anchor that end of town, you'll have $10, $15 million of invested capital, but what that's going to do to our core central business district is unquantifiable. Whether Rachel has 50,000 people, 30,000 people, 100,000 people matters less than that we have the opportunity to create something wholly unique that will drive not the volleyball, Chuck Norris and the boats and all that when I was doing that come in and leave. This is sustainable, it goes year round. We have about 4 months here of activity. We've owned a lot of these businesses down here, and I can show you the sales in retail. The broader question, in my view, for the council is, to me, and I was very skeptical at first, but as we think of it, what this can do to create a year-round presence of the type of activity we want, and all the passion that Rachel and her board show, and her stats notwithstanding, in my view, the better question is, what better? The taxes will be handled. I'll argue the taxes, and I think will be a compelling argument. if this can go there, this is a 75-year decision. This is an institutional investment versus an economic development investment for purely, private return on capital. It's a remarkable opportunity. That would be where I would focus. And then let us come back if we're selected rather, and then prove out statistics that will glaze your eyes over, but that she loves so much, and I have looked at ad nauseum, but with great conviction. I wish I had her energy. We have an opportunity for something wholly unique at not a lot of cost to the city. And that's what I would be focused on versus why there. I think the why there is going to be, there's going to be a parabolic increase in what occurs down there. What you were referring to earlier is a tangential or secondary SEV, and Kevin knows this stuff. That's not going to be a big deal. I think that'd be where my focus is. I think we've got an opportunity to do something that has a permanence to it, unlike some of the things we've done. I get Coast Guard City. My uncle was the lone survivor of the Escanaba, Raymond O'Malley. So I get all that. And every year, there were two of them, he lived the longest. And every year we come in, we come out. This is all year round. And it's going to lift our downtown. I'm going to spend several million. You think I'm going to spend that money if I don't believe in this? I'm not going to do it. I'd like you to give us a shot at that and come back and prove the financial efficacy of it. But we can't get there unless we're selected. It's going to take a long time, but I think we've got a really cool opportunity here to do something really neat that sustains and distinguishes the community and does do all those cool things with children and programs and so many other things. And I don't want to belabor it or be redundant. So, Your Honor, I'll stand down and answer any questions.
Thank you.
But it's more about why not, in mind. I think it'll be cool, and I think we'll...
Thank you, Denny. So earlier in the work session, when Copper Rock was fielding questions, Mike, I think you may have had other questions, and I kind of cut you off.
Yeah, I was just kind of like shot it right out there, but I just want to say thank you very much for your presentation and everything else and that. The only question I have, one of the main questions I have has been a failure, even though you do have a lot of residents down there now, but I've also talked to the restaurant owners down there, and they really struggle in the wintertime. Is that a feature that you really want to stand on? Have you reached out to the local restaurants and see how they do during the winter? Because right there on the waterfront down there, I don't know about you, but it's pretty cold and it's really blowing down there. And I've seen 3 restaurants been built down there, and each one of them only lasted 2 or 3 years, and then it was vacant. It's really hard to have a restaurant on the waterfront down there. And if you ask Snug Harbor, have you reached out to them yet or not, or any of the other restaurants as far as winter?
Short answer is no. We have not reached out to any of the local restaurant operators specifically as it relates to this site opportunity. Again, we think that would be premature since, as Denny pointed out, the retail office environment since COVID has been completely changed. And so we think that location has the best opportunity for something that would be of a year-round inducement to have people continue to visit the community through the winter months. And there certainly are examples from Petoskey all the way to Chicago where those type of operators do exist. Whether that outfit currently resides in Grand Haven or 100 miles from here is yet to be determined, but we would ask for the same type of latitude that Denny and Rachel have asked for, to be able to fully vet that, since we can't name names because
I understand
we're too early in the process to actually have gone through that entire exercise.
I was just studying history. I've been here all my life, and I've seen what's been built down there, and I've seen business come and go down there. And I just didn't know if you did any study ahead of time to find out exactly why it didn't work. Yes, we have more people living in the area there, but still, it's really an environment. If you're trying to, we were trying to attract people into our town besides the ones that are living there. I just want to see more business for downtown area.
Yeah, we certainly agree that we all want to recognize that, pardon the analogy, but all ships will rise if that top line in terms of revenue that's brought to the community can be increased.
Very good.
Anything else?
Question for me?
No, not for you.
Oh, okay.
Did I make a comment or no?
Not yet.
No, go ahead.
Trying to keep this sorted a bit.
Ryan hasn't said anything.
But Ryan hasn't had an opportunity, so would you
Talk
like
to
to
Copper
ask
Rock.
questions of Copper Rock? Or do you want to kind of mix them together? What would you like to know?
I don't know that I have any questions. I think I have more of compare and contrast comments. So
Okay.
if that's what we're going to have some discussion tonight on some of these too. or-
Today, the intent was to hear the presentations and ask questions of the developers about their proposals. I'm not sure that we were in a position to debate their proposals and come to a conclusion tonight. If you have something that you'd like to say, I guess that I'll give you the floor.
Well, I'm not saying that we need to come to a conclusion tonight. I think we've heard a lot to consider tonight, but I
Well,
think it seems to make sense to at least have a little discussion and
Well, let's see what you
give them
have in
some
mind.
feedback, right? I'm sure the community's kind of wondering where some of us are at too, and we've received a lot of comments on this. And I think, I look back at, as part of the Beyond the Pier process, and I mean, the big focus of Beyond the Pier was, okay, like, what do we do next there? What's that right mix for the future and some future planning that's going to drive traffic there and be a year-round destination? I mean, that was just the central premise of the Beyond the Pier master planning process that we went through. Connect that area to our downtown in a better way or more of our Main Street environment in a better way. And so what I hear from, both teams is that they're both open really to, kind of redesign or different layouts. And so I think what, I see is this kind of, looking at, which mix of uses is really the right mix for our community going forward. The one thing that the Coppercraft folks, and this is, no offense to their proposal, but one of the quotes was that, we're doing something similar to this in another community. And I thought, do we want something that's just similar to what another community is getting on our waterfront? Is that really what we're looking for here? My concerns with the Coppercraft proposal, I think the massing and scale for me is too much. I think with the Charette proposal, I think we're seeing, kind of that larger set of mass, starting out there and getting smaller as we go. We have a kind of a farmer's market oriented to where we can see through to the water. I think the scale and massing of the retail and office is, they're using more dormers instead of a full, built out, two-story design. But beyond that, I think, when we talk about, why, especially with the Children's Museum piece on the waterfront, think about the things that, when we have, mini golf and splash pads on the waterfront, they don't create taxable value, but they're, very popular destination. That splash pad is like constantly busy and attracting, kids and families. And, our Main Street DDA folks did some studies, a few years ago. And one of the central pieces of that was like, a sign of a healthy downtown is one that has things for children and families to do, especially, that has kids that are around. And I think Mr. Charette, kind of said, look, this is unique in that it, to possibly have a children's museum there, really at no cost to the city. And there's a lot of communities that kind of think this idea up. We're like, man, it would be great to have that, but the city's not going to be able to take this on. Like that's a big undertaking. And then you have this enthusiastic group of folks who's been hard at work on this for a couple of years, and wanting to not just take put one step in and just kind of see how it goes a little bit. They want to come out of the gates and do it right and truly be a destination. And I think one of the community members shared this email. Maybe she shared it with some of you as well, and sent it to me this week. And I thought that she just hit it perfectly. And so this is part of her comment. She said, "I believe the Children's Museum would be a wonderful addition to our community. It would provide local families a place to learn and grow, create an option on non-beach days for summer visitors, and bring in visitors from the surrounding areas, which would be beneficial to our local merchants. But there's something else that excites me about this project. The drivers of this project are our next generation of doers and donors. They are a dynamic team and have an exciting vision for our community, just as Bill Creason had for the musical fountain, Wendy Creason had for the Imagination Station, and Ken Formsma had for the boardwalk, to name a few. This coalition of young, enthusiastic leaders from both Spring Lake and Grand Haven envision a project that will make our community even better. They are ready to make it a reality. I hope we have the wisdom and courage to support them." Again, you know, I appreciate restaurants on the water. I love eating on the water. It's a huge piece for me, but we have 2 restaurants on the water that we can enjoy year round, and they're great and they're fantastic. You know, this is unique. This is something different. This is something that can drive traffic year round. I'm not worried about, you know, more and more tax base along the waterfront. I appreciate that Mr. Charrette's willing to prove the numbers, and, you know, but as he indicated, you know, the cultural value is really unquantifiable. I think now is the time that we take the leap and do something different for our community and you know, look towards the future. Again, 70, 75-year decision. We have restaurants, we have retail, we have office space in town. This is an opportunity to have a year-round children's museum destination for children and families, and I think we have to take a chance on it.
Okay.
Thank you, Ryan.
So did you have any specific questions, comments for either of the?
That's my comments. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Fair enough.
Your turn. Your turn.
Okay.
Mayor, could I have you clarify one point that I failed appropriately? I just want to leave one more comment.
Keep it brief.
Thank you. Our friends from Copper Rock are good people. They're great builders. I'm just going to be honest with you. I told this to our city manager and Brian. Guys, this is Grand Haven. A restaurant isn't going to make it. It's not going to make it. Not in February when you slide in sideways into the curb, and it's, in my view, I mean, you know, we've owned a whole bunch of them. Retail is marginalized. Charlie's Crab went out. We have owned a lot of these things. This is my town. I don't want anything to fail, and God bless you if you get it and if it can work. I think it's a 0 that a restaurant's going to work. 0. Talk to Lofty. You know, well, playing golf with him tomorrow. I need one more at 2:10. If someone wants to play, you can ask him yourself. But we've had a couple unique restaurateurs. Howard back in the day, Steve and Carol. But boy, it's tough. And I think Mike's exactly right. That's what is so good about this, and that's the only reason that we, and you got to be, in my mind, open-minded to maybe office, some type of professional office. This is a terminus road. It doesn't connect to the next town. It connects to Highland Park. I really would urge you to think about the institutional unique value that you can have here. We're out if you require a restaurant. I'm out. I think it will fail. And again, we can agree to disagree. That's just my view. You may well be right. Retail has to be very explicitly defined. Other uses, professional office. And I owned the Putt-Putt. I know how much money it made. I'm the only guy in history that actually claimed all the taxes on a cash business. My late friend Ken Hairstead and I own that. Now, I'm teasing. There are others, very few. But it's so unique. And Scotty Geerlings, who was initially involved, and Scott and I talked about it last week, again on a golf course. Wonderful opportunity for a unique, distinct differentiator that no one has. And they got to go raise the money. They need to pay cash. But it could be really cool. I think if you're thinking restaurant and retail, we're going to be disappointed. I don't see it. I think some combinations of that and support of it. But what I think it can do down Washington Street and down in Centertown and even down on Washington Ferry and East End can be very helpful. we just would respectfully decline. I just wanted to reiterate our very strong view of the likely difficulty of a year-round food service working there, juxtaposing that against something that goes well beyond the shoulders of May to October, which they would. I'm going to try not to say anything more tonight, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. And I think that questions I may have had you may have just answered, so thank you. Okay, so I guess that as far as the Copper Rock proposal goes, in general, I like the mixture of uses and the buildings and the arrangement I see in the Copper Rock proposal. I'd like to see. I appreciate you said they had a lot of flexibility in how you would arrange the site, and then so did Charette Group. Basically, what we're seeing right now is a very broad brush view. Here's some elements, here's some uses. They could look kind of like this. And I think that's true of both of these, that the actual site plan nobody's married to at this point, except that things have to fit on this site. And I worry a little bit about how they're oriented. We hear a lot from the public about the view shed, looking through the buildings, looking around the buildings. I think if you reorient the buildings, make sure that the aspect is correct, that the height is not too great, that you can improve the view from the street, you can improve the visibility of the buildings from the road and from the river. I think that could be true of either of these proposals. I like the multi-season enclosed marketplace. I don't know how well it would do in the winter, if it's worth heating in the winter, but maybe it becomes a 9-month facility instead of a 12-month facility, but certainly more than we have today with the farmers market that we have today. So I like those features. I like and I like the fact that you looked at the architecture of the area and you tried to pick elements, whether the buildings would look exactly like you've put in your rendering. I don't know. We're not married to that, but it's interesting that you looked at trying to make it blend into historic architecture of the city. So, and those are good features that I care for in the Copper Rock proposal. And whether or not a restaurant would succeed, I think that a restaurant can do better than others, but I think it needs a critical mass of other features around it. People have to have a reason to go there besides going there to eat. I think if you have other businesses that can be in existence at time, or if you have things to do in your multi-purpose building, if it's programmed correctly, if it's set up correctly to have activities all year, a restaurant could probably do okay. Nobody around here gets fat during the winter because population is 1/10 of what it is in the summer, and businesses do struggle with the seasonality of this town. But I think that our goal is to make this into preferably a 4-season development, and if not that, at least a 3-season development, something longer than we have now. Because right now, if you go down to, or even before we tore the buildings down, if you went down to Chinook Pier in April or in October, you wouldn't see much anything happening. It's basically dead. So it's always been very seasonal. I'd like to see a longer season available for whatever is there, and I like a lot of the features that I see there. In terms of the Charette proposal, I appreciate the flexibility. I would like to see the farmers market be an enclosable structure, whether it's an enclosed structure. I mean, what you've shown in your rendering was basically a shed, just a roof with posts, and that's, of course you can. Of course you can, and you can do other things with it. This is something that I would be looking for, and something that we've talked about, and something that I think that was part of the RFP as to how to better integrate that. And I think the farmers market has to be at least large enough, at least as large as we have today, if not more so, for a farmers market to prosper there. We struggle with our farmers market having capacity. We struggle with having the ability to get vendors lined up properly and able to display their materials that they're selling, their produce, their other things that they make. I like the idea of the incubator kitchen type thing, things like that. We still have to accommodate the charter boat fishermen, and right now there's a marina bathroom that doesn't show up on the Copper Rock plan. I think it's a vestige left over on the Charette plan that has just been kind of worked around. Those are things that we need on these. Whoever we work with and going forward on this project, we need to have that kind of flexibility. As Kevin said, we're looking for a partner to make this into a very good proposal, or very good development when it's complete. And I think that we're trying to not recreate, but kind of go back to, but in a better way, to the development we had there for 35 years that Mr. Charette was instrumental in putting in there, that it actually worked very well. It worked well up until we had to take it down. It wasn't built the greatest. I mean, it suffered from some structural flaws and some, I mean, it was great for its time. It lasted 35 years. And we would like to have more like a 50 or 75-year structure, something that's more enduring. There again, you have to have the foresight to make it usable for that amount of time. So, and as far as other features, I think we have the elements in these plans that we asked for. We didn't ask for the Children's Museum. I'm still unconvinced that it belongs on the waterfront. I think I would love to have a children's museum in this town. About 22 or 24 years ago, when I was on the Planning Commission, we entertained 2 competing proposals for children's museums in this town. And because the 2 couldn't get together and they fought, basically, we ended up with none. And because we didn't have room for 2, we had room for 1. I think it would have been great if it had happened then. I think it'd be great if it happens now. I think it would be a draw no matter where it is. I think that it has a very real possibility of being wrongly sized for the site that it's being shown on, either too large if it's too large a site if it's unsuccessful, too small a site if it's wildly successful, as everybody would hope it would be. So I'm not sold on the waterfront site for the Children's Museum. I'm not going to, at any rate, I think that we have kind of what we asked for. We're asking for flexibility. We're asking for the ability to get those elements so they work well for us. And I think I would like to see the kind of activation of this site that we had when Chinook Pier was there, when it was functioning. We had dozens and dozens of people there up and down that site all the time. People would sit there and watch the world go by, or they would shop or eat ice cream or whatever. If you go down there now on a typical day, you might see a dozen people enjoying the open space. But it's not active like it once was. I think we could be active again there with the right development. That site is, as I reckon it, from the city's public waterfront, basically from the pier, the end of the pier over by the state park, all the way around past the locomotive to the wharf marina. This is roughly 10% of that space. All the rest is publicly owned, publicly accessible, very good visibility. So we're not really losing the ability of the people to use their waterfront. And going back to the Beyond the Pier study that we did, public access was always a number one issue, something we wanted for any proposal we built. We wanted people to be able to walk along that waterfront and enjoy it no matter what was built there. We still want that. I think that's still a primary feature. So at this point in time, it's kind of where I'm at. I think we're still looking for a partner. We don't have a lot of the data that we would like to have to really vet a proposal, and I don't know if we can get that without really intensive and expensive effort on the part of developers making proposals. What we have now is what you get with an RFP, high level, based on uses, based on square footage, based on kind of what we asked for. So at this point, as I mentioned to Ryan and others, it's not on our agenda tonight to make a selection. I think the council has a lot to digest, and I think that we still are listening to the public when they tell us what they like and what they don't like. And I'm still listening. You know, obviously we're all forming opinions, and the opinions of the public will also influence the bulk of buildings, the size, the massing, the orientation, things like that. When we do put in buildings there, it'll be something that is sensitive to what the public would like. So I don't have specific questions other than those comments as well. Kind of like Ryan, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what I was looking for, what I saw in the presentations. Charette had a chance to make fairly exhaustive comments. I don't know if Copper Rock would like to add anything further that wasn't said earlier.
Could I have a few words
Go ahead.
to add to it? Listening to Ryan here.
You got the sun in your eyes there.
Oh, that's all right. I've had sun in my eyes many days. I myself personally, Ryan, I agree with you. We need something down here that will attract business year-round to our downtown area. We don't need businesses to be competing with our downtown. Right now, we have a bunch of spots that are empty down there. We need to fill those spots. And I tell you what, if we start building more retail or anything down there, it will draw them away from our downtown area. Our downtown is the heart of our town. We have to make sure that our downtown is healthy and it maintains. I myself personally, I have grandkids, and I'm in favor of a child's museum, be honest with you. I was just down in St. Joe. Where is their children's museum? It's right on top of the hill. If you look out there, there's the lake, and they got this splash pad that's probably about the size of a football field down there right in the water. It's really basically their waterfront, because if the lake came up, it would be waterfront for them. And I watched the kids going in and out of there. I was down there from about 1 o'clock in the afternoon till about 9 o'clock at night, and I tell you what, the traffic going through there was unbelievable. I myself personally think it's a great idea because it will attract people there. They will go downtown year-round and go in there and do it. We need something that can at least support our downtown. We don't need to be competing with the downtown. We need to support it. So that's my comments.
Okay. Thank you. So at this point, I don't, like I say, would you like to add anything?
Sorry, I just wanted to also answer Councilman McLaughlin's question about why choose us kind of thing, I guess. You kind of heard Copper Rock, but you didn't really hear from our side of the team. And I may not be as eloquent as Denny Charette, but I'm also from this community. I want to see something great out there, and I want to be a part of something great as we go forward. So that's all.
All right. Thank you. All right. Well, I think we've all, unless there's anything else from council at this point?
No.
I think it's time to move on from our work session. I appreciate the presentations and appreciate all the information you've given us. We've given us a lot to think about. And it's a very important decision we have to make as we move forward with this process. But I think we'll get there. It's just going to take some good consideration of everything we've heard. So,
I'd like to say thank you for 2 amazing responses to the RFP, because you're making this very, very difficult.
okay. So those of you in the audience who are standing up, this is time for our call to the audience. So if anybody would like to address council, let me read my speech. At this time, members of the audience may address council on any item, whether on the agenda or not. Those addressing council are asked to provide their name and address, will be limited to 3 minutes. Here's where the 3 minutes comes from. Of speaking time. Council will hear all comments for future consideration, but will not have a response at this time. Those not physically present who would like to call in may dial 616-935-3203. Yes, ma'am. Name and address.
Hello. Mine's under 2 minutes. Hi, I'm Janice Doty, and I live at 16980 Cecilia Lane in Ferrysburg. However, I have a Spring Lake address, and I reside in the Grand Haven School District, so I'm truly a Tri-Cities resident. My husband and I, he's here, we moved here 3 years ago from out of state to be near our family, our kids and grandkids. We are here tonight to express our support for the Grand Haven Children's Museum proposal. We love living here. 3 years. Just this past weekend, I came with a friend to the Merchants and Makers event. From there, we went to the farmer's market and then lunch at Stan's Cafe. My first time there was excellent. And a final stop at Frank's Market. Spending money at every single location. Why do I share this? Because most of what I do in Grand Haven is adult things. I have 5 grandchildren. Other than walking the pier and going to the musical fountain occasionally, I don't come down here with them because there's nowhere to really go or do. We live on water, and we enjoy all that Grand Haven has to give. But there are times where I and a lot of the friends that I've met who have grandchildren, we don't come down to Grand Haven. I have taken my grandkids to Frederick Meyer Gardens. I've taken them to the zoo in Grand Rapids, and that money is not staying in the Tri-Cities or in the Grand Haven area. And it is a heck of a drive. I don't like doing it, and I think we're right here on the lake shore. It would be wonderful to have something on the lake shore to bring our children to, and revenue to our downtown area. Why the waterfront? I also live in Tampa in the winter, and I go to the Tampa Museum on the water. And why do I do that? Because I get to go to all the restaurants that are already down there, not competing and putting new restaurants in. So I'd ask you to please consider the Grand Haven Children's Museum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Becky Newman. I'm the president of Walk the Beat, and we are on your agenda for our event application. And I don't know if you wanted us to speak or not, but I did want to show you the route map as you consider whether or not we should close Beach Tree. May I approach?
Now, is this something different than we have in our packet?
I think it is.
Yeah, you can give us that.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead, give us that.
Okay. It's just, I know you're familiar, Kevin. If you've not seen or you can't visualize the number of locations that we're talking about.
Thank you.
That are dealing with pedestrian traffic, that's why. And our concern about closing Beach Tree is all from a safety standpoint. We're upwards of 2,000 or 3,000 visitors in this 4-hour event, and the sidewalk gets very, very, very crowded. So that's our request. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura Anderson, and I'm an owner of City Auto Body on Beach Tree, and I'm here to talk about the closure of Beach Tree. As a person who's ridden their bicycle up and down the event, rallying volunteers and different things over the years, it is a very busy event, and the overflow just from Norms to the sidewalk and to not close that street in front of there, it's a little dangerous. I, like I said, have been on my bike up and down the street. It is a little dangerous. So my request is, let's close that street, that whole corridor, just for that afternoon, and keep it a safe and healthy event. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Shia Lyons, 1324 Hillcrest Street. Just wanted to say thank you to everybody for coming out to the Merchants and Makers event this past weekend. Thank you guys for allowing us to have it at Chinook Pier for the last 4 years. We're going to miss the space at Chinook Pier, but I am definitely in strong support of development of the space. While we've really enjoyed having the space, using it 2 Saturdays out of the year is a real underutilization, I think, of the space. Because of my background with makers and artists and farmers and that community, I really do appreciate the Copper Rock proposal for their indoor-outdoor farmers market space. I think that it can provide year-round or mostly year-round event space for the farmers market and for markets like ours, so that we could hold potentially something like a holiday market in Grand Haven, which we would love to do. So just really appreciate the support of the Merchants and Makers community and hope to continue that over the years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Blair Butler. I live at 1300 Franklin Avenue. I'm on the Walk the Beat board, and I just wanted to really ask you to take into consideration the closing of the Beach Tree Road. Over the years that I have volunteered with this event and then moved into a position where we discuss everything going on with it and live in it and work within it, it just has become, I believe, a necessity for the safety to shut the road down. In a lot of communities, we talk about a lot of different things coming up, and there's always a great response, it seems, from Walk the Beat. The number one thing I hear is the complaint of, why isn't that road closed? We have cars going up and down, we have children, we have families walking back and forth. It's hard to have people to just stop. The traffic wants to continue. So I just want to ask in support of closing that Beach Tree Road during that event. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes, my name is Jeannie Sherman. I live at 421 Sand, and I appreciated both the presentations that they gave tonight. I appreciated your comments, each of your comments that you had for that. I just want to share my thoughts. I have shared them with some of you before. But my number one thing is at this moment, which I think I'm hearing from you at this moment, is to do nothing at this time as far as the building of buildings go. You are trying, I think, to coordinate Harbor Island in the back of your mind anyway, and perhaps the Chinook Pier should be included, and instead of two separate proposals, but to maybe combine them. I think the farmers market would be a wonderful place on Harbor Island, and to build like a 3-season structure. Because of course during the hard winter, no one goes anywhere outside, if you live here anyway. And, but for 3 seasons, and then increase the size of it. I see the vendors here, everybody is so squashed in together, they're not able to do it, but there are plenty of crafts and bakeries and jellies and lots of other crafts that could be in April and could be in October or even November, approaching Thanksgiving. So that's something to consider. And then you'd have plenty of parking over there, so people could fill up their cars and go home and then come back to the city to do something. This is something that's out of the box that someone had suggested to me, and when I first heard, I thought, oh, wow, you know, what are they thinking of? But the more I thought about it, it's perhaps to erect a permanent Ferris wheel on your property. We have so many visitors and tourists coming into town, and I think that would be something that would be used. People would be standing in line for it. Children would want to come back for it, just to have something out of the box a little bit. Enlarge your mini golf area. I know when my children and grandchildren were younger, we loved it. It's kind of small and it's kind of outdated, but perhaps enlarge that area here again, because we do have so many families that come in, and when they're here, we want to get their attention and their monies and whatever else that is going on. I'm not sure that this could happen, but maybe even move the fishing charters to the opposite side of the channel, across the channel right there, to the south side of Harbor Island. Anyway, thank you, and I thank you for your considerations, and I know you'll make the best decision for that multi-million-dollar property that you own and are stewards of. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? There will be a second call to the audience at the end of the meeting, if anyone wants to wait until then to speak. Otherwise, I'm going to, if no one comes forward, I'll close the public hearing and we'll move on with our agenda. Okay? Then let's move on to a presentation of the Community Energy Plan.
Good evening. My name is John Kinch. I'm the Executive Director of Michigan Energy Options, and I live here in Grand Haven. You have had presentations already, hour and a half worth today, so I'm going to try to make mine a little bit easy to digest by suggesting to you there's 3 takeaways from our community energy plan we've been doing that we started last summer. One is that the analysis we're doing with the energy consumption in our region, and I'll expand on this, leads us to know that we can actually do a lot of good decarbonization of our economy. We can reduce our greenhouse gases in the energy sector and also the transportation sector in particular. Secondly, we have strong community support and interest and engagement for what we're trying to do. So those 2 things alone are strong foundations on moving forward with a plan. And thirdly, the thing that I think is equally important is that there's a lot of funding, outside funding, available, nowadays for these kinds of projects. And one of the ways you get grant funding from the state or from the federal government and other places is that you have a cohesive plan that you plan to make improvements on. So I'm going to go into detail about that as quickly as I can, and also answer any questions. I want to first thank the council, of course, and the city of Grand Haven for sponsoring this project. Ferrisburg is involved, as well as the Grand Haven Township. Mr. Fritz is on the steering committee. We have a steering committee of a number of people from different places. The Community Foundation has also sponsored us. So we're getting close to the end, but we're not quite there yet, and I'll give you a point where we are right now. Thanks. So I think the takeaway from this quote is, really for me at least, it's about sustainability and economic resilience. And oftentimes we think about resilience in terms of the energy sector, in terms of our power not going out. And we're very fortunate here with the BLP. We have a really super record of not losing power, unlike some areas around us. But also there's economic resilience. We were talking about this new development down by the waterfront. So clean energy and those kinds of investments in our buildings not only make our buildings cheaper to run, which is good for the owners of those buildings, it also makes them more comfortable, more durable, those kinds of things like that. Same with introducing more renewable energy, in particular solar and storage, to our community. That's a local asset that gets built and gets operated here. So that's jobs, that's indirect economic benefit, that's direct economic benefit, induce economic benefits. So we can really be thinking about growing our local economy by also growing more energy resilience and more green, more solar power in our community. This is what we've been doing for the last few months. We're kind of at the point now where we're looking to come forward with our strategies and a plan to have you folks take a look at it and let us know if it's what you want us to be doing or not. And then ideally going after, again, more funding and then getting programs and projects in place. The RFP requested of us to have several deliverables. One is for a carbon footprint of our region. And by the way, the region, what we're talking about here, it's kind of the Tri-Cities. It's got some of the Grand Haven Township. It's essentially the service territory of the BLP. That's what we decided to focus on. So we're drawing the line kind of there. We're looking at good, better, best scenarios. This is for reducing greenhouse gases in our community, and this is over about a 26-year period. So what can we do that's a good solution? What's a better solution? What's the best scenario? We've had very robust community input, including a community survey, which I'll talk about here a little later. And then the strategies are really the plans to get things done, whether it's a policy plan, whether it's an implementation plan, whatever kind of plan it is. Those are the pathways forward to try to make change in our community. Like I just said, optimal pathways, we're really looking to make sure that these choices we're going to put in front of you for strategies are the best ones. And we're triangulating on those choices in 3 different ways. One is that our own team is made up of Michigan experts on energy. We have Five Lakes Energy with us, which is a really excellent organization. So we have some of our experience ourselves. We did something very similar for the Traverse City Light and Power, also in Ann Arbor. So we know a little bit about this, this plan. That said, we're also looking at what the industry is saying is the best solutions out there. So something like the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, or the APPA, which is the American Public Power Association, of which BLP belongs. These organizations and others have strategies and plans out there for communities. So we're looking at those and seeing how they fit with our community. And then lastly, like I said, there's money available now. We should be going after that money to put programs and plans into place. Again, this is not something we're going to address next year, but we're going to start soon. And ideally, in a 26-year period, we'll have made some significant change. This is a guide. This is something to put out there for people to take a look at, to read, to decide whether they want to do it or not. This is something which can go in front of local governments. You folks can decide to adopt it or not. It's all up to you. And then realistic. I know that sometimes some of these plans come forward, especially when they're a policy plan, and they seem like they're not looking at all of the bank account. And so we're not doing that. We really want to make sure that what we're proposing to the community here is something which also has a funding availability. Now, again, funding availability today, 5 years from now, it's going to be different. 10 years is going to be different from that as well. This is essentially the methodology we're using. We're looking at creating a baseline, which basically means this is all the energy we've consumed at this point in time, 2022. And then we're looking at how we, through various kinds of strategies, improve the adoption of energy efficiency, renewable energy, and reduce our greenhouse gases. And this is, if you tune the next slide, Tim, thank you. You get a little bit of sense of better what the numbers are. So way back in 2012, we were using 130% more energy than we're using today. So 2022, thanks to the BLP and other work, is where we're looking at as our baseline. And so what we want to do then is reduce that number significantly over the next 26 years to get to some kind of a percentage that we think is right for our community. It might be good, it might be better, it might be best. What we're also doing is aligning our strategies with what the state of Michigan has going with My Healthy Climate Plan. A bunch of energy legislation just passed last year that's putting teeth into some of these policies. So we're also making sure that we're not out of alignment with what others are doing around us. As you can see, we get pretty darn good. We go as close as 24% of our greenhouse gases being reduced by 2050 in terms of our scenario. Now, that's not all of it. But that's because just a small community like this, we can't actually take care of it all ourselves. Some of this is going to be something we're going to have to look to from the outside, carbon offsets, things like that. And also just remember, too, that new technologies will be coming on board between now and then, and there might be something that really is a solution that isn't even invented yet. Here's what we're looking at renewables. What the state of Michigan is doing is kind of the good scenario. We're suggesting we could look at a better scenario here, and then beyond that, even a best scenario. As you can see, if we really go after it, we could have 100% renewable electricity in Grand Haven and our surrounding communities. What that means is not that we're going to be putting up solar panels everywhere around here, because BLP has already got about 20% of its portfolio, as you can see there, that they're sourcing from transmission, essentially, solar. And so a combination thereof, stuff from somewhere else and stuff we're going to put in locally is what we're envisioning going forward. Transportation. So we're looking at transportation through a lens about, to be sure, converting to EVs, electric vehicles, but also looking at mobility, looking at better mass transit, looking at bikeability, walkability. I think many of you heard the Harbor Transit's ambitions last week or thereabouts about how they want to green up their fleet. We've met with them before. And when you think about EVs and whether somebody is buying an EV this year versus an internal combustion engine or an ICE engine, that's a kind of personal decision. But EV fleets, what governments control, is not such a personal decision. That's really a business decision. And so we've got really good evidence out there that transitioning fleets is a really good idea for local governments. And you do all kinds of interesting things. You match that particular range of that vehicle to how much it drives around. Over the course of the day, you look at your high mileage vehicles like the public safety folks and you think about that. But there's a lot of good evidence out there that making that transition sooner than later is a good idea. And similarly, the other thing that's out there is getting on EV charging. There's lots of money from the outside, again, to help build up the EV charging network in the community. We're part of the Lake Michigan Circuit here in Grand Haven. My nonprofit did work with the state of Michigan, helping to try to locate where you should find ideal locations for EV chargers. So if somebody decides to drive from Chicago around the lake and all the way up through the UP and back down to Chicago, they won't have that range anxiety. The second part of our analysis is more about community engagement. So that was all work that the quants in the organization did, the guys who were crunching the numbers with energy consumption, greenhouse gases. We also had a number of open houses, and we did a survey with about 400 people took the survey in the community. And one of the things we wanted to find out was, how much of a problem do people think there is a problem out there? And pleased to say that, even though climate change is a big, hairy thing, that people really saw that there are local solutions that we can be doing today, that it wasn't too big not to do anything, and also that it wasn't not real. In a similar vein, we also asked people, would they support programs and projects that would work at getting at these issues around climate change, and particularly resiliency and those kinds of things. And again, very overwhelmingly, people were in support of us putting the programs and projects into place. And the genesis for that is this community energy plan. So the barriers to doing this kind of stuff is cost, right? And I don't have to tell the city council about issues around cost, right? That's evermost on people's minds. It's on cities' minds, it's on private people's minds. I do like to help twist this a little bit and suggest that we think about this as investment. A lot of the investments you make in local clean energy projects pay you back. They have an ROI. So in other words, you put solar on your roof and you reduce your utility bill. Eventually, you recoup the capital cost from that solar, and then you're even doing better than that. So a lot of these kinds of things are really serious investments in long-term infrastructure, long-term sustainability of the community. If we think about them just as a raw cost, they're capital intensive. I'm not going to kid you. Some of them at least. But again, to point out to you, there's also outside funding available, grants, loans, those kinds of things that can help make your capital stack a lot less out of your own pocket and out of somebody else's. One of the big concerns with the clean energy transition, as it's sometimes called, is that people of lower incomes are already struggling to pay utility bills, and some of these solutions that are renewables and all the rest may, at least in perception, cost more. And so one of the emphasis on the federal money that's come out of the Biden administration is on just transition. And also that's the case in the state as well. And what that essentially means is you make sure that in your plans to onboard a bunch of new renewable energy or energy efficiency programs, you're thinking of those folks in your community who are struggling the most. And I think most of you know this, that 1 out of 4 people in the greater Grand Haven region are folks who struggle with poverty. So we can't be doing projects that are going to exclude them and only be available for folks who have the cash to do that. This was an interesting question we asked people about who you thought should lead this kind of work. Utilities, our utility, BLP, we also have the Michigan Gas Utility here, scored pretty well, and as you see, you folks did pretty well, local units of government. And then you work your way on down the list, and I'm embarrassed to say that as a head of a nonprofit, we kind of brought up the rear there with who should be leading this. But what was most encouraging about this question is look at what people are suggesting who should be leading this. It's a coalition. It's not me, it's not you. It's people in this audience, it's businesses, it's the utility. It's a number of stakeholders and interests are going to be what makes a community energy plan community. So what's next? We're working on the report right now. We've been workshopping with our own steering committee, other interested stakeholders. We've done a lot of data gathering. And then we're going to begin to kind of ground truth some of our strategies and ideas and put them in front of people to see what they think of them. Like I said, some of these are unique to Grand Haven, the Grand Haven area. Some are industry standards. Building energy efficiency, home retrofits like they've done in Holland and all the rest. Cost-benefit analysis, that is pretty strong. We can probably do more of those kinds of things. More challenging might be how you find distributed solar and where you locate it and the value of that. But then we'll be coming forward with some strategies and ideas with good sources behind those and begin to have conversations with people about whether that's something that fits here or doesn't. So with that, thank you. Do I have time for questions or Bob?
Any question for Mr. Kinch?
Yes, John, will you have, as part of that report for some of the local governments, just some advice on how to implement some of these things? Because you're going to come up with a lot of different recommendations, some that are easier based on budget to implement.
Absolutely.
Some that might be, that's the lens we want to look at all our capital investments through and, try to, in some of the transitioning. But whatever those are, hopefully you're going to come back with some, advice and counsel on how we can start to put those recommendations into our.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a good start here in this area. I mean, one of the things is we're with the Michigan Green Communities. We have the Sustainability and Energy Commission, a group of citizens, residents who are focused on this issue. We're doing well with the Michigan Green Communities. So we've got a lot of things like that in our favor. Like I said, the Board of Light and Power has good energy efficiency programs. They've got 20% of their energy is coming from renewable energy. So we've already got some things in our favor. But you're absolutely right. What you want to be thinking about is something like this, if it's got a 26-year horizon, if you will, to 2050. Am I doing the math right? Is that 26 years away?
Yeah.
I think so. You want to be thinking about stages of that, right? Like what's year 1 through year 5? What do we want to be focusing on? What's the most cost-effective solution? What are those things we can be thinking about doing now? What's your 5 to 10, something like that, where we're looking, and always through an eye to budget, and also considering what are those things that are hot right now? Like right now, there's a lot of money out there for doing things like EV charging and things like that. If we don't do that 5 years from now, it might not be there anymore.
So that's another, question, but you mentioned earlier that we would need to adopt a plan. It starts with the plan and having a community energy plan. Are you looking for the individual local municipalities participating in this to formally adopt something so that we can get access to that? Or are you still looking at,
I think ideally we would like that as one of our outcomes, is to put this in front of the local units of government, have them codify it, adopt it. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I can't emphasize this enough, that oftentimes as you're competing for outside funding with the Traverse cities and other places like that, or other states for that matter, one of those boxes that oftentimes the funder, whether it's a foundation sometimes or whether it's the government, is looking for, whether it's something out of industry, there's all kinds of different kinds of funding. They're looking to see if you have a comprehensive plan, or whether you're just kind of showing up because there's an opportunity and you're interested in it. So we think this is going to be cohesive and hold everything together and make that case. Some of what we're doing is just uncovering what's already been there for a while anyways, it just hasn't seen the light of day. Some of it is our own analysis that we've come to, and then again, like I said, some of our ideas we think are good ideas, but also they're ground truth with what the industry and the sector see as best ideas.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, just thank you for the update. It's a good touch point. Look forward to the final result and appreciate your work. And yeah, I think to Karen's point in your comments, it's, taking a look at recommendations, but, digestible, realistic. What can we, like you said, 1 to 5 years, what can, the city really do instead of having a report that maybe, goes on a shelf and gets dusty, and, something that's actually actionable and that we can keep on the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. My nonprofit, for what it's worth, we've been around since 1978. We're really known as kind of a think and do nonprofit. We do a lot of projects and programs. We're an implementer. We're not theory. We're not policy. I want to see proof of concept in the ground or on the roof or wherever it is.
Perfect.
Sure. Yeah, I think we'll all be very interested in seeing specific proposals that are actionable. There's a lot of data, there's a lot of ideas, and a lot of good intentions, and once it comes down to what can we actually implement and what the impact will be on the public, I think that then we'll really be able to see what direction we want to go with this.
And Mr. Mayor, part of that also will be, once the plan is kind of done, a collaboration with the Sustainability and Energy Commission, with Planning Commission, with council members, with the other governments and all those other kinds of folks, to kind of get down to something that, is actionable.
Anything else?
Do our local industries get their arms around this? Have you worked with our local industries, the big industries in town? Is this something that they kind of get their arms around? Is this something that they, are they working with you, or?
Yeah, what's interesting about that is that, there are corporations, and we had a really good meeting with SHAPE. Mike Westbrook told us all the amazing things that company is doing. There's others like Matt Kite is doing all kinds of good things like that. In business, sometimes the businesses are driving the change in the community because they need to have higher standards themselves for their energy efficiency, for their reducing their own carbon, for onboarding renewable energy. So sometimes they are leading the community because they're working in a national or multinational environment in which the expectation of that environment is that you're going to be doing these things. It's all your scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, all your ESG, all those other kinds of things that are driving business today. So it's not a nice to have anymore. It's an essential strategy to be competitive in the business world. So we have some of these companies here, which is wonderful to turn them on and to get them. I'd like to see a little more communication and conversation between some of these companies and in the community. I don't think we necessarily know some of what's going on there, and it's really good stuff.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I was talking to a couple of the owners of some of the big businesses around here, and a lot of the requirements for them is to be energy efficient. From a lot of these contracts that they get, they're required to make it more efficient for them. So it's quite interesting how far a lot of our businesses have come from around here to be part of it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Thank you again.
All right, that brings us to our consent agenda. Maria, would you please read that?
Item A, approve the bills memo in the amount of $274,867.57. Item B, approve the fiscal year 2024-25 fee schedule amendment 1, reflecting changes to setup/teardown fees charged by Central Park Place beginning July 15, 2024 and ending June 30, 2025. And item C, approve a special event request to use 6 parking spaces in the parking lot adjacent to the Bookman beginning Friday, July 19th at 5 p.m. through 5 p.m. on Saturday, July 20th for the Bookman Summer Bash.
Can I get a motion?
So move.
Second?
Motion by McLaughlin, second by Cummins. Any questions on any item on the consent agenda? No. Would you please call the roll?
McLaughlin?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
Fritz?
Yes.
Lowe?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. Okay, first item of new business.
Item A, consideration by City Council of a resolution to approve a special event request to use Bolt Park and East Grand River Park as host locations for Walk the Beat on Saturday, August 10, 2024, and close a portion of Beech Tree as directed by the Department of Public Safety from 1 p.m. until 5 p.m., and apply up to a $500 discount to the rental fees as outlined in the City of Grand Haven Special Event Policy. Administration recommends approval.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Fritz, second by McLaughlin. Okay, so questions on this motion or on this item is, no, actually earlier I asked for some clarification on what exactly public safety is recommending.
Yeah, Dana can speak to that.
Yes. Good evening, Your Honor, members of City Council. Dana Culloware, Deputy Public Works Director for the City of Grand Haven. To answer your question, Mayor, when Public Safety looked at the request to close Beech Tree for the event for Walk the Beat, they were initially putting forward a more conservative recommendation or a approach potentially to closing a portion of Beech Tree, not having done it before. However, we've had more discussion internally as staff. We've looked at some of the ways that we can communicate with the businesses outside of the Beech Tree corridor impacted, and Public Safety is supportive of closing the Beech Tree in the requested area from Walk the Beat, so from Waverly to Fulton. So that is different from what the memo outlined, which I said was a more truncated area than the entire area that they were requesting. So this would be for Beech Tree from Waverly to Fulton on August 10th from 1 to 5 p.m.
Okay, so then the motion as made, because it says as recommended by, as directed by Public Safety, now would be the entire Beech Tree corridor.
Correct.
From Waverly, north of Waverly to Fulton.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to be clarified about that because it was a little confusing from the memo.
Yeah.
And it was certainly very different from what was requested.
Right. And I do apologize on Dana's behalf, too, because these were some late adjustments that were made in conversation with our Department of Public Safety and Public Works. This kind of closure is obviously a little more labor-intensive with our Public Works Department, as well as a little more concerning with our Public Safety Department as far as vehicular traffic and how you maintain safety, as we're familiar with a number of other events. So in trying to mitigate some of those concerns and navigate that a little bit later in the agenda process, I do apologize for the late change.
Okay, no, I just want to make it clear what's before us.
Absolutely.
Was there any thought from Public Safety about keeping any of the cross streets open so you could go from one side to the other at Beech Tree somewhere in the route? Or are you talking completely closed?
Yeah, completely closed. We did discuss that at one point early on with staff from Walk the Beat, but felt that would probably cause more confusion and we'd have even more barricades and barriers that we'd have to place up to keep vehicles from turning and providing more notification. So that was not preferred.
Okay, Thanks. Comments and questions from council?
Thank you for that.
Yes.
I think in fact, we had some meetings on this at the, some of our Easttown meetings, and I think it's absolutely crucial that we do that. I mean, after last year's event, which was unbelievable, I strongly recommended to everyone that we try to do this. So I'm glad that it worked out for everyone, and I look forward to a great event like we do every year.
I have to agree, Kevin. When I was out there, it was one of the suggestions that was brought up to us many a times. I know almost all the owners out there saying, we need to close the street off because there's just way too many kids and just so many incidences that could happen. This is a much safer environment for them. It's getting to be a large event, so I'm happy for having the whole street blocked off. I really am. I'm very supportive.
Your Honor? Same. I was very concerned last year because it was, I thought it was rather unsafe, safe, but I was worried. I was worried about people and their children, the way things were, because it was so successful. My question is this: do we have any concerns from business owners along that between Waverly and Fulton on Beech Tree about it closing and shutting off their business for those 4 hours?
I'm sure Becky can add anything in terms of conversations that she may have had with business owners, but many of them, the ones that are open, are participating in the event that day. So there are some other businesses within that corridor, but I think
for the
most of those
part
aren't open. But we certainly will do whatever we can if there's anyone that we need to try to ensure that we're providing as much access and communication about they're open and that we do have access to their business. I don't know if Becky has it. Yeah, Becky.
Becky Newman, 932 Prenoyer, forgot that last time. I think one thing that you should know, there's a consideration for the people who are at East Point RV, the actual people who are staying there, that there will be an accommodation route for them to get in and out. Other businesses will have access from all of the side, all of the side streets. So we don't know of anybody who would be out of business, so to speak, for those 4 hours.
Well, great work. I concur with the comments, and the RV park was going to be my question, and you answered that. It sounds like it's been well thought out, and a good discussion has occurred with staff, and so I'm support.
Also, just want to note Glass Source as well, like any of those businesses that are
Yeah.
kind of on that end, for anyone that may be wondering from the public, there'll still be access to those businesses.
And the event takes place on a time and date where that's minimal impact. So I think this is the best course. I was down there last year as well. It's pretty hectic with all those people out there not watching traffic and traffic trying to drive through. This is the best thing to do. Okay. If there's no more questions, would you please call the roll?
Fritz?
Yes.
McLaughlin?
Yes.
Lowe?
Yes.
Cummins?
Yes.
Manetza?
Yes. Next item, please.
Item B, consideration by City Council of a resolution to approve a capital improvement grant to the Michigan Arts and Culture Council in an amount not to exceed $30,000 to continue the lighting project and replace theater lighting with LED lighting with matching funds coming from the capital improvements request approved in the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. Administration recommends approval.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
And second?
Motion by Fritz, second by Cummins. Is there any, would Char like to explain this item?
Yeah, Shar can certainly speak to the detail, but just another great staff effort to maximize on already budgeted capital projects.
Shar Say, Community Affairs Manager. Tonight, I'd like to just talk to you a little bit about this grant application. Through the Michigan Arts and Culture Council, they give opportunity for capital improvement grants. If you have operational things for the arts, they allow for applications for that sort of thing as well. We did apply for and received a grant last year, our first ever, to redo the floor at the center, as well as we got some additional lighting in there. They have done some changes to their grant application in that municipalities and other partners that they work with only have to contribute 25% to the project. And so in this case, we can ask for a maximum of $30,000 for lighting improvements. And of the money that we already have in our capital plan approved by you in the budget, we would only need to use $10,000 of the $40,000 that we have set aside. This would be a phased lighting project. There are many factors to the lighting system in there. Consider your house. You have a lighting panel that has circuit breakers and that sort of thing. We still have an operational system that runs by a floppy disk. So you can kind of imagine how that is. That's very common, is what I'm learning in this process. And so starting with the bare bones, get that finished first, then work on the LEDs. And now, as I listen to the presentation tonight, there may be very many more opportunities for me to gain some insight on the energy efficiency improvements of the LEDs. There's an opportunity as well for us. The Board of Light and Power has a commercial and industrial Energy Smart program right now. And so we're working with them and their consultant that is handling that for them. So there should be some additional dollars that we can apply for and get. It's a process. You have to submit for pre-approval. But we should be able to phase this in over the next couple of years. And our greatest expense next to our staffing is our electric. So we have about a $60,000 annual bill for electricity, and anything that we can do to start reducing those costs would be, I think, a great addition to what we're trying to do and reducing our dependency on the general fund. And I'm doing my part, trying to get as much money in here as I can.
And that's much appreciated. Okay, comments or questions?
Just on the wording,
Yes.
then, a resolution to approve a capital, we're not giving a grant to, we are approving a grant application to the Michigan Arts and Culture, or?
No, the capital improvement request is for the capital funds that we already have set aside from our millage.
So why are we giving it to, we're approving a capital improvement grant
I think
to the Michigan
The word
Arts.
application should probably be after the word grant.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Then I understand everything.
All right.
Yeah, apologies.
Do you want to amend the motion to include that word?
I would like to do that for clarity's sake. Otherwise, it looks like we're sending a grant over to the Michigan Arts and Culture Council, and I don't think that's what we mean.
Would you like to make that motion to amend?
Yes, yes, I would like to make that motion to amend.
Would Ryan like to second it?
I will second that, sir.
Thank you, Ryan.
So we're going to amend the motion to add the word application, capital improvement grant application. Any questions on that amendatory motion? Please call the roll.
Lowe,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. Any other questions on this motion? If not, would you please call the roll on the amended motion?
Fritz,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes. All right, there are no other items of new business. Brings us to a report by City Council. Who would like to speak?
I'll start.
Okay.
I don't know about you guys, but Tuesday night, I didn't have a chance to go there because I was at Bolt Park listening to music, but I did see a lot of video of it, at the Bluey event downtown. It was unbelievable, over 2,000, almost 2,200 to 2,300 kids down there and that, just participating in it. What more do you want to expect from our little social area? It's exceeding what I expected, and I tell you what, they're doing such a fine job. And on Monday nights, if you get down there, they have authors that come down there, and they describe their books that they write, and it's really another good event. I happened to be down there for one, and it was really nice. Mike O'Brien over at the Bookseller puts that on, and it does a fantastic job, so I want to say thank you to him. And the last thing I'm going to say, I've been to a lot of other things, but as I said earlier, I went down to St. Joe. I went down there for a book signing also, and happened to spend the whole day down there, and I did notice where the Children's Museum was and how they had things laid out. But their splash pad, I think, is about the size of a football field. It's just huge. If you ever get a chance down there, take your kids down there. I mean, they'll be running forever. They'll be dead tired when they're done. And the last thing I'm going to say is, what about those Tigers, huh?
How about that?
Hey, they took on Cleveland, one of the hot teams, beat them. Dodgers come to town, and they took the series. So now it's all-star time. Home run derby tonight.
It is.
That's it.
And you're missing it.
I'm good.
You're good?
Yep.
Anyone else?
The only other thing I would add, just from like your comments on the proposals, I think you had suggested to Mr. Charette that you'd like to maybe see an indoor-outdoor market, and it seems like there's, I'd like to see that too, and there's definitely, interest in that. So, if that's something that the Charette proposal, the Charette group at least is willing to incorporate, then the discussion kind of comes down to a children's museum or a restaurant as far as the types of uses, and why not give the children's museum a chance? Well, we already have restaurants on the waterfront, so if we can get that indoor-outdoor market piece, we get the retail and office, why not give them a shot? That's all I have.
Okay. Karen, do you have anything?
No, I'm good.
I'd like to say a couple of things. Well, first, one of the things I was thought about addressing during the presentations, and I didn't, but I'll just bring it up now, is that we've been asked to spend time trying to plan Chinook Pier in conjunction with Harbor Island, the future of Harbor Island, future uses, what might be there. And my concern there is that there's a lot of unknowns and a very, very, very long time frame on Harbor Island remediation. What's going to be permitted there? Would we be allowed to put any foundations or any utilities or any supporting anything on Harbor Island, or would we have to be left pretty much capped? Or if we have to excavate everything, will there even be an island there anymore? I mean, there's a lot of questions about that. And we could find ourselves waiting a long time for resolution of the Harbor Island situation, and yet we just went through a public input process talking about what we might put on Harbor Island if we had our druthers on it, and that would be natural areas, natural space, passive uses, park-like uses and such. And if that's the direction you would go if you had an opportunity to go anywhere, I guess I'm not quite seeing why we're waiting to do something with Chinook Pier to get to that point when we can see that that point probably doesn't have much to do with what we put on Chinook Pier. So I don't really see us waiting for that particular piece. I think it's unlikely that we'd be putting anything particularly intensive out there. We could be surprised, but I think it'd be a good decade before we got that surprise. So just, that was the last comment I wanted to make on the proposals for Chinook Pier. Otherwise, I think we still have two very good, viable proposals to look at, we need to think about. I would like to mention that tomorrow morning, Congresswoman Skolton will be in town to make a presentation for, I believe it's about a $16.25 million grant for Harbor Transit to get a new terminal facility and to update their fleet to be more energy efficient and more green. So that's a tremendous amount of money to bring into the community for a very good cause. I was on the Harbor Transit board in my first term as mayor when we started talking about a new facility. New terminal facility, they've outgrown what they have. They don't have room to put all their buses indoors and maintain them. And it's just a really crowded little facility intended for a department of the city, which has grown to be a regional authority. So getting this kind of money, getting a better site for it, that'll just be great. And the Congresswoman will be here to make that presentation, give a speech. I intend to attend that, and I think it's going to be much appreciated by this community. And the last thing I'd like to mention is that on Saturday we saw intrusion of violence in our politics. This is something we all need to be very clear that we condemn this. This has no place in our politics, that no one should be bullied or threatened to either into silence or into guiding political discourse. Political discourse should be a matter of civil discourse where we talk about how we feel about our politics, about our candidates, we should always be free to challenge the actions, the behaviors of politicians without fear of violence or retribution. We shouldn't, and this has happened throughout American history in the past and various times, but anytime it comes up, we need to be very, very clear that politics is a way of bullying people, violence is a way of bullying people into submission or silence and guiding a future which is good for only those who are willing to go to violent ends. We just need to be very clear that this is not who we are. It's not what we do. So that's my 2 cents. I'll get off my soapbox and turn it over to City Manager.
I have nothing to add tonight.
Okay. So then that brings us to our second call to the audience. So I shouldn't read the number? Go ahead and take the call.
Caller, you're on with City Council.
Anybody there?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, I'm calling in. My name is Kate Hoffmeyer. I live in the Grand Haven Township. I'm calling in about the Children's Museum option for the proposals for Chinook Pier. I do have a lot of questions and concerns about that possibility. I have 3 children, and I've definitely spent my time at children's museums. I've been to the ones in Las Vegas, Chicago, Brookings, South Dakota. They're great. They're a great family-friendly thing, and I do think Grand Haven perhaps could be a good place for that, but I have so many more questions than answers. I'm curious how much taxes will be required for something like this, and how much government funding and grants. Grants are not free money. What citizens from which towns will have to pay. I'm also curious what the cost for this particular museum might be. I mean, a good museum will cost anywhere between $10 to $60 million. This is a huge liability and will take years to recover. Has there been any feasibility study based on attendance at our other 2 museums? The location is prime real estate. To support a good museum, this water frontage will be wasted with parking. There are many other areas around town to consider for this. And also, I'm just curious why there's only 2 proposals for this venture, and if it's possible that we can maybe open it up to get some more people, companies, whatnot, to put in proposals for that area. The town I moved from, they had a group that wanted to start a children's museum. It took years and years of planning, and they did mini museums, they did events, they tried to raise money, and unfortunately it failed. It's just a huge venture that we probably shouldn't go into lightly. And that was the last of my public comment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. At this time, members of the audience may address council on any item, whether on the agenda or not. Those addressing council has to provide their name and address. Will be limited to 3 minutes of speaking time. Council will hear all comments for future consideration. Will not have a response at this time. Those not physically present who would like to call in, my dial 616-935-3203, as just occurred. Anyone would like to address council? No one's rushing to the podium. Okay, well then I'm going to close the second call to the audience. At this time on our agenda, we will be going into a closed session for personnel matter. So When we come out of our closed session, we're simply going to adjourn the meeting. So you're welcome to stay here and watch that if you wish, but it's not very informative. So I would, at this point, need a motion to go into closed session.
So move.
And I'll second it.
Okay, motion by McLaughlin, second by Fritz. To go into closed session to consider periodic personnel evaluation. Would you please call the roll?
McLaughlin,
Yes.
Fritz,
Yes.
Cummins,
Yes.
Lowe,
Yes.
Manetza.
Yes.